States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just a reminder for everyone to silence their cell phones. I'll check mine. We'll start with roll call vote. Roll call.
Mayor Sherman.
Here.
Councillor Gorell. Here. Councillor Klinkhammer. He may be joining us in just a moment by conference call. Councillor Lundstrom.
Here.
Councillor Spradlin.
Here.
Councillor Strau.
Here.
Councillor Tyree.
Here.
All right. We have the approval of our agenda for this regular meeting, April 25th. Do we have any additions or corrections?
I have two additions. The first one would be donations presentation under visitors and delegations for the Sarah House, Sarah Incorporated. And then under management, we're also going to add 2022 Paving Projects bid award.
Very good. Can I have a motion to amend the agenda and then approve?
I move to approve the agenda with the given amendments.
Second.
Roll
I
call
remember how it
vote.
works.
Councillor Spradlin.
Yes.
Councillor Tyree.
Yes.
Councillor Gorell.
Yes.
Councillor Lundstrom.
Yes.
Councillor Strau.
Yes.
Mayor Sherman.
Yes. We have two sets of minutes to approve, and we can do them both in one motion. We had a regular meeting on April 11th, 2022, and then we had our special meeting with SURSA on April 12th, 2022. Does anybody have any corrections or revisions for either of those? If not, I'd look for a motion to approve both sets of minutes.
I move we approve minutes of the regular meeting of April 11th, 2022, and the special meeting of April 12th, 2022.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Councillor Strau.
Yes.
Councillor Gorell.
Yes.
Councillor Spradlin.
Yes.
Councillor Lundstrom.
Yes.
Councillor Tyree.
Yes.
Mayor Sherman.
Yes. Next we have visitors and delegations. First we'll have our, we have the Sarah House here. We have a donation for you. You want to give us a little history of the Sarah House?
Sure. I'm Paula Bragg. I'm the director at the Sarah House. I started Sarah House in 2007 as, first of all, a rape crisis center. Shortly thereafter, I was asked to consider opening a child advocacy center. So I did that. And what that is a group of people who provide forensic interviewing, forensic examination, and specialized victim advocacy on cases involving children of child abuse and sexual assault. Now we've added another line, and we're working more with domestic violence victims as well. My forensic examiners are specially trained to examine injury to the neck. So anytime someone has been strangled, we also assist those victims as well. So we keep taking on more and more hard things.
Yeah.
Our cases last year, we saw over 570 people last year, both primary and secondary victims. We provided 190 forensic interviews. With those forensic interviews, we're now also interviewing adult victims of sex assault and domestic violence. And that's something pretty new in our state, actually, with our kind of agency. We found it to be very successful. So far, we've, I think, done 10 interviews, I think. Oh. And we're just finding that the women are opening up, taking their time and talking, and they're more able to tell their story completely. So we just want to thank you very much for your support of the work that we're doing. We always apply your funding to our fundraiser as if some of you maybe would like to come and play golf with us. We thought we had a date, but it looks like we might have to change it. So as soon as we know for sure when that date is, we'll let you know. But we would love to have you come in and spend the day. We do a really fun golf tournament at Keith Bath Farms. So it's a beautiful, beautiful area. There are always eagles flying above us. And so far we've had really wonderful weather. changing the date makes me really worried because we've always had a perfect day. So we're just going to hope that that can happen again. And we sure welcome you to come, and we'll let you know of that date. And again, thank you very much for your support. We appreciate it more than you know.
Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you so
Thank
much.
you for what you do. It's definitely really important, and I'm sure you've seen an uptick in,
Unfortunately, we have. And unfortunately, when you think it can't get any worse, it can get worse. We're learning. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pause for just a moment to get Councilor Crawford.
yeah. We're just gonna take a minute to see if we can get Counselor Camera on the phone.
Councilor Camera, this is Miranda with the City of Brush. Can you hear me okay?
I can you hear me?
Yes. Okay, you're joining right now, right before citizen comment.
Right, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so next is our citizen comment period. Citizens are invited to speak to council on any item that does not have a public hearing scheduled. There's a 5-minute time limit per person, unless otherwise noted by the mayor, and please use your time wisely as you only get one opportunity. It's the only chance in the meeting to address council unless otherwise invited. Please note that no formal action can be taken on an item that's not posted on the agenda due to the open meeting law provision. However, they may be placed on a future posted agenda if action is required. To better assist you with questions, please submit them in writing to the city clerk, and someone from the staff will respond. So is there anyone here that has any comments on anything that does not have a public hearing scheduled?
Hi, my name's Gordon Westhoff, Warren County Commissioner. On behalf of, I'm a board member of NECO, Northeast Colorado Association of Local Governments. There is a representative here, but she's letting me do the talking. We are in kind of like help. We need some help to deliver meals to the senior citizens of the community of Brush, Colorado. The meals are prepared in a kitchen here in Brush, but we have no people volunteering to deliver the meals to the senior citizens that would like to acquire them. So there is a lady named Mandy Rogers. She's in the back row. There's the telephone number here. It's 970-768-9812. Contact her for more information. I do know there's some people in the Fort Morgan area that deliver the meals and some people in the Wiggins area that do it, and we are hurting for some people here in the Brush area to deliver. 970-768-9812.
Is this the same as
So-
Meals on Wheels, or is this a separate?
It's different than Meals on Wheels. It's a part of the services that NECOG provides. It's part of their ombudsman's program, right? No, okay. That was close.
Sounded good.
Yeah, it did sound good, but we're needing some volunteers to deliver some meals.
Okay.
So,
Do they have to be of a certain age, or is there any kind of restrictions?
driver's license, please. And the people they deliver the meals to, they're kind of chatty because they don't see a whole lot of people. They like to talk, you know, because they don't see people, so. Mandy, if you'd like to say
Thanks.
something, go ahead.
I couldn't see you floundering anymore.
Thank you.
So the requirements are they have to be 18 or over. Of course, they have to have a driver's license if they plan to drive. They have to pass a background check. Unfortunately, or fortunately rather, that's where we run into the most trouble. They pass them usually when we say you have to pass background check, they bolt for the door, unfortunately. So, but we have to protect our seniors.
Sure.
It's not the same as Meet and Eat, Meals on Wheels. It's called Meet and Eat, and it's through the Area Agency on Aging. We serve clientele 60 or over, or persons with disabilities that live within the housing authority.
I have a question for you. When you say that you're needing help, how much help are you hoping to obtain?
Well, I would love to have 3 or 4 regular drivers and maybe some alternatives.
And is that like a 7-day-a-week commitment?
5.
5 day a week.
5 days a week in the noon hour. A lot of people that are doing it now are doing it on their lunch hour. God bless them. They get it done within the hour. But Gordon's right. Our clientele do like to chat. So part of the service that we provide, not so much for the client, but for the client's family, is reassurance that somebody is speaking to their family member every single day, that we know, they know, they're being looked in on and cared for.
So is it possible to do like a part-time thing, like someone who can't do it on a lunch break has 2 days off a week?
Yes,
Like that 2 days like rotates or whatever, I mean,
yes.
okay.
Now, in Fort Morgan, we have the Rotary Club who does that. They kind of switch off, and it's so appreciated.
Cool.
Okay,
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
thanks for your time.
Thank you. All right, is there anybody else?
Can I do it? I just real quick, where's the place where
You
the,
gotta, come up here and state your name and your address.
Derek Moser, I don't know what my address is, P.O. Box 1518, Fort Morgan, Colorado 80701. But, where's the place where the eagles fly over the golf course? I didn't catch that on Sarah's house.
Keith Bath's Farms?
What's it called?
Keith Bath's Farms?
And that's a
Is that-
golf course?
It's on Highway 34 as you're going into Fort Morgan.
It's right across from my DFA where the milk plants are, Leprino.
Okay, I'll look for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Next we have management items. First, we have a public hearing on ordinance number 897-22, an ordinance amending the Brush Municipal Code by adopting Chapter 13, Article 7, our watershed protection. So I will start by opening the public hearing and ask for a staff report by Monty.
Okay, I'll do kind of a condensed staff report because we've had this so many times over the last few months. I think most of the council members and I think even most of the audience, they've been through most of these. But in the packet, which the packet's also available near the maps against the wall, what we have is the newly revised copy of that watershed protection ordinance. The water protection ordinance, this is the second time that we went through public hearing. And the first time, we heard a lot of questions, concerns, comments from the public. We also had some written comments as well. We decided to, at that last public hearing, we decided to not approve that version of the watershed protection district. So this new one is one where we took all these different comments, we tried to incorporate them the best we could into the new ordinance, and then we sent it back out for publication a few weeks ago, and after we had a first reading again, and then tonight is the public hearing to finalize the watershed protection ordinance. One thing did come up in the last couple weeks, and we did have one of the property owners sent an email asking us to relook at the map and then where our start point was for that 5-mile radius going down below the well-filled area. And so we did have our engineers look at that and Dell look at that, and I'll have Dell talk about that more specifically here in just a minute, but we did make some of those adjustments as well. So we have a new map and new legal descriptions, and we just wanted to point that out for everyone that that 5-mile radius going south is not as far as it used to be. It's shortened up about a half a mile, is my understanding. But we'll have Dell talk about that in another moment. Just a real recap for those, it's a state law that allows for a municipality to protect where the water comes from, and that's our only purpose. One of the challenges or concerns that we had heard of was, we didn't want this to impact any property owners' ways of life, and especially with the agricultural uses of the land. And so we did change from our first version. We put the very clear language up front that agricultural businesses, ag-related businesses, they're all exempt. So if you're ranching, you're exempt from it. Anything historical, you're exempt from the regulations. And then it went into some of the limiting factors towards the next couple paragraphs. But we did that we had some concerns about that, not understanding the way it read, because it did read like all these limitations, and then after that it said protecting the agricultural uses of the land. So we put the agricultural uses to the beginning there. So we did republish everything as directed by the city council, and then we also sent out letters again to the property owners, and we did make that adjustment to the maps. So you will see the maps change a little bit. So I want to give Dale just an opportunity to talk about his correspondence in regards to the map and changing where we started from.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Council. With that, we did hear some feedback. This is one of the things that we've tried to do is incorporate a lot of the comments from the affected property owners. And with that, there was a comment about the definition of intake. When looking at this 30 years ago, when we first started this process, intake was determined to be the well field itself proper. However, after some discussions with some property owners, we felt it prudent to take the advice that we are talking about our actual well being the intake to our water system. And with that, we sent that back to the engineers to have it looked at, had legal look at it, and we all agree that it's more prudent to go ahead and use the wells as the intake instead of the edge of the well field. With that in mind, we have several well fields wells in that field, and so we looked at the intakes to those particular two individual wells that are the furthest south and west. And with that, we redrew the boundaries and had everything verified 3 times just to make sure we were good. And so we were asking to amend the ordinance with these minor amounts, keeping in mind it's the same property owner. And it is, so we really didn't have to notice anybody new or republish anything new. All we did is just reduce the area of the watershed protection district. Keeping in mind also, we have additional wells that are adjudicated but not drilled that are still further south. Once those wells are drilled further south, then we'll have to come back and amend the district itself at that point in time. So there's a good possibility in the future that this could move outward just a little bit. Okay. Any questions, comments?
Thanks, Dale.
Okay,
Thank you, Dale.
The only other thing that I needed to add was that we did have a request of a property owner to encourage the city council to do some homework in regards to actually visiting the well field area and the area that is south of the well field. And so we did offer that to the city council. We had a good amount of our city council members that were able to make that and do a field trip out there to the well field, the brush prairie ponds, and overlook the areas to the south. And so that was also accomplished since the last meeting. And that's all I have to report in regards to the staff report.
Thank you. So now we'll open it up to public testimony. Members of the public have the opportunity to make statements either in support or in opposition of the ordinance. Anyone addressing council must first come to the podium and please state your name and address before making your comments. Each party given testimony will be given 1 opportunity to speak and must direct all questions regarding the ordinance to the mayor. Do we have anyone here for public testimony?
What is the yellow line that's already out there?
Can you state your name and your address?
Patch
for me?
Dar,
Sorry.
1548, Hill Rose, Colorado, 80733. And I don't have an 8 to 5 job, so I was a little late. What was the yellow line that was around the original map?
Yellow line. I guess I
Do you
don't know.
remember-
Dale probably would know.
the shading on this map on the right?
No, it's already protected by the state.
That set water quality standards for the groundwater. It didn't, it doesn't have.
It
any-
is already set by the state, right?
Again, like I
The
said,
state protects it already.
no, they don't.
No, they don't. Well, then how many, this has been going on for 30 years, you said?
Since 1992,
Okay.
I believe.
So you start looking at every piece of land that's sold in the last 30 years. If you were so damn worried about it, why didn't you start buying it? You're not gonna take any rights from me. You're not gonna, period. I mean, you shut me off the last time because you didn't want me, because the public hearing was over. But you're not taking any rights away from me. I own it, I paid for it, and I pay taxes on it. And you guys don't have the authority to do that. I have an attorney already, I've talked to him. He said, we're right. But if you start looking at all that land that changed hands in 30 years, if you were so darn worried about it, why didn't you buy it? And what problem have you ever had? None. And it's already protected by the original map that you gave me. You gave me, and it had that yellow line around it that went farther out even. And you also told me that Quality Water was in on it. They weren't. Right?
We have a support letter from Quality Water.
No, this supported what you had. Not the very beginning. Why would Kent tell me that?
We've got the letter.
Okay,
'Cause they
whatever.
have well
But
held.
I'll fight you tooth and nail, period. I already came down to this. Now, if I go gravel a road, somebody's gonna get pissed off and figure out that I did over a quarter-mile of road, build a road in so I can get a truck in. Now, that's gonna screw up your water quality. Or if I go around a 30-foot tank, and put 10 foot of dirt around it, 18 inches deep is 53 yards.
That's part of your agricultural operation.
So then what are you doing then?
It's exempted from needing a permit.
So
If
what,
you read
so
it,
what are we doing with this deal?
have you read
Yes, I've
the
read it.
ordinance?
What are we doing?
Protecting the water from people that are gonna that could come in and do things aside from what you're doing with your farm.
What does the state do?
Not
They've
enough to-
already done it.
No, they don't do enough to protect our water.
Yes, they have already, why would they draw that line around the municipality water? They already did. Been there since what, 2009?
The line doesn't do enough.
You're trying to keep somebody from building a reservoir on the thing and trying to rush it in before they get it through water court, just like I said last time. And I don't think that's gonna happen either, because I ain't gonna let it happen. But all of a sudden, it's a rush deal to get this done.
It's not a rush deal. We've been working on this for months.
Right, but it ain't gonna happen.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, not on my piece of property. I'll do whatever I want. And I don't know how many landowners there is in here, but I know a couple of them, and I think we'll probably join in. I guess that's all I have to say.
Well, thank you for coming tonight. Do we have anybody else?
Gordon Westoff, 20038, Road 19.5, Fort Morgan. County Commissioner, I appreciate you guys not wanting to take away the property rights of the individual landowners. When you redraw a map, I think you need to redo your ordinance. I don't know if that's a legal term, but if you redrew it between the first reading and the second reading, don't you need to redo the first reading?
I think it's just the scrivener's error. I think that all the affected parties have been noticed.
The brush brush well field, the mile north of there, that was not in the first map that if I recall, is that right, Dale?
I'm sorry, I was taking notes.
The mile north of the brush well field, that was not in the first map. I do understand it might be the same original landowners or in that list of landowners, but if you redraw a map, you gotta redo your ordinance.
So
The
all the
first reading.
properties that have been affected have been noticed. So let's just say
After the fact.
But
that this is,
the map's changed, it involves different
it involves
neighbors,
fewer that have already received notice.
and they've
so-
already received notice.
We've shrunk the area.
The area's gotten smaller.
And
To the north it hasn't, correct?
That was
Correct me if
The
I'm wrong.
north boundary's still the same, aren't they?
North boundary's still the same as what it was, first time we did this, back in '92, when we revisited it back in 2008, and even when we started it again this year. That boundary has not changed.
That boundary's not changed.
It has not changed.
If I remember, I don't, maybe I'm wrong, I thought it was right level or even with road, whatever that N, I would believe it would be.
0.5.
Oh, yeah, okay, that one. Well,
The
five.
southern boundary,
I'm talking the north boundary.
I know, but the only change is the southern boundary went up back to the north. So it got smaller.
Yeah.
smaller area.
So with the agricultural use of the property, they don't have to come to town and get a permit through the city to do any of their business whatsoever. The calf operation, the feedlot operation out there will not have to come to the town to add on to their feedlot if they need to. And if they do a new retention pond, are they gonna have to come to the city and get a permit for that too, along with the county permit?
With the new retention pond,
Yes.
then I think you probably
They
would have
add
to.
on to it. They have to come to the city to get that permit.
Correct. They might even need to go to the county as well, I'm not sure,
They have to get one through the
and
county.
and the state. But that's a very specific question to that operation.
Some of the
regards to
wordage
the
in
state.
there about the existing, like, a new septic system, leach line. I do know state of Colorado issues them permits. We direct the people to mail over there at Northeast Colorado Health Department. They do issue them permits, so are you gonna make them come to the town and get the permit for that septic tank too?
As long as they get the county one, we just,
It's the
it's
state
just a
one.
rubber
We
stamp.
don't issue a septic tank permit. The state does.
Well, Northeast Colorado Health Department
Yes,
does.
they do. The health department does that. And that's regulated through the state. We don't get involved. We don't deal with that stuff. So, I guess as long as you're not violating any or taking away any landowner's rights, which they have the right to do what they have and need to do on their land, I would appreciate that. Because it is their land and they should be able to do whatever they want.
Steve Cecil. I own basically part of the old Huey Ranch. My address is 24758 Road K, Fort Morgan. I totally agree with what Pat Jabauer just said. You have no damn right coming to our property and doing one darn thing. And what you're trying to tell, whoever wrote this up here is a in-coop lawyer probably. There's stuff in here, if I come to your place or yours, any of you city councilmen, and give you this letter on your house or whatever you own in this city, what would you do? You'd stand up and you'd fight. There's a bunch of crap in these letters that don't make sense to us country boys. There's all kinds of stuff in here. Have you ever read it? What would you do, partner, if they come to your house and say, hey, you own a house, you own a business, what do you own in this town?
House.
If they come to your house and said, hey, this guy over there's gonna do this to you, some of the same stuff in this letter, what would you do?
It depends on the circumstances.
You'd stand up and fight's what you'd do.
It really depends on what they're trying to accomplish.
Well, if you read that letter, and if you had anything to put in here, you know, it just ain't one or two things. What you guys wanna do, you'd think this is Russia taking over Ukraine, is about what it is. Look at all that stuff you got wrote in here. Did you write it up, lawyer?
I didn't, I reviewed it and I brought it back to the water attorney.
Well, who wrote it all up?
Water
Who put all this stuff in there?
There's attorneys that specialize in water protection districts, and
Yeah.
they wrote it across the state.
You know, the way I looked at that thing that the state give you the right to do this, but you know what I think that pertained to mainly was streams. It didn't stream to a well you got out in the middle of a section. It ain't, you know, Rifle, Colorado. I can see why they, you know, if you got a stream and you're drawing your water out of a stream, that's a heck of a lot different than right here. I don't know. I'm gonna join Pat. I'm gonna get me a lawyer, go right with him.
Anybody else?
Lance Ensley, 14844, Morgan County Road 29. So how was your tour? Do you have a better understanding now of what's there?
Did you get stuck?
So the main issue I have with this whole ordinance is it's pretty loosely worded. Now, maybe myself and you can come to an agreement, but I'm sitting here thinking 30 years down the road when there's new people sitting there and my grandchildren have to deal with this. Loose wording does not help that situation at all. And I also noticed the redistrict drawing, looking at the map, and I'm on the northern border, which I'm not upstream from your well field. But I noticed the new line drawn is going to be about 0.5 county road, if he was going across there. Am I correct on that?
I would have to look, I'd have to look at a map with roads on it first.
Well, it's one thing when we're talking about pasture for me. With the way it's drawn now and the way I interpret it, now we're into farm ground, which is productive. And we do use chemicals. We do excavate dirt. And like 13,720 definitions, your item E, we're down to the 50 cubic yards of dirt. I was thinking in the red line at one time we talked about the 500. Maybe I'm wrong on that, maybe I'm not. And all the noxious weed control and that kind of stuff. So section 13,770, item F, spraying and using herbicides, fertilizers. I guarantee you we do that.
That's under the section that says, let's see. Oh, up above, there's noxious weed and insect control is not.
The other thing that is a good point that I hate to bring up, that corner by the pasture that is at the edge of that circle is where we store manure so that we can spread as we're gathering through the year. So that falls within that boundary the way I interpret it. And also in that same section, letter N, I have a sprinkler that we're developing that when it was flood irrigated, that was pasture. We've been discontinuing acres on the bottom side and taking out more acres on the top. So yes, I am sod busting in that area. So I guess with the way it's redrawn, I have a whole new set of issues.
So a lot of the stuff that you're concerned about is activities which require no permit. So any cultivation, normal farming, silviculture, ranching activities, all that stuff's exempted. Noxious weed, insect control's exempted. So a lot of the stuff I think that you're worried about, you guys are exempted from. Your normal day-to-day farming activities, you're exempt. No permits needed. It won't affect you in any stretch of the imagination.
But
road maintenance.
we're pretty loosely worded on that, Justin. I'm not talking about how it's worded for what you and I stand here and understand at this moment.
Okay,
30 years down the road, when our grandchildren are here discussing this, is what I'm talking about.
So you want us to be stricter?
Better wording on exactly what it is. And I think that's what most people are concerned about.
can you give me just like a, for instance?
Well, just like the things I just talked about, and then you have to go looking for what is exempted from it.
It's at the first part,
Which would be item number what?
13,760. All of those items require no permit.
So construction of maintenance of farm and ranch roads, that's all exempted.
Normal farming, silviculture, and ranching activities, including but not limited to plowing, haying, seeding, cultivating, minor drainage, harvesting for the production of food, fiber, and forest projects. These are all not,
What we tried to do,
do not require.
to give you some reassurance here, is that sub A, anything that you're doing right now, continue doing. If you're, I apologize, I don't know the terms, but if you're harvesting sod or whatever you're doing there, that's covered by 13,760A.
But like I said, I'm downstream from this.
Well, the way the statute, which was written at the state level, it says within 5 miles of a radius from the wellhead, or any place that we're taking water. So, if there's upstream, and I'm not an engineer, but my understanding is there's some kind of a clay wall that basically protects a backflow from coming in and contaminating water, and I believe that's where you are, then there's reason to believe that would need to be protected. It's literally this exact same thing as zoning, right? If you guys wanted to put an airport out on your pasture, you would have to go to Fort Morgan or whoever and say, this is what I want to do. And they'd say, all right, just show us that it's not gonna hurt air traffic or anything like that. And they give you your permit. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make the times when you have to come to the city as minimal as possible. Only the times when engineers and people that do this for a living say, yeah, that does pose a harm to water. So we're not trying to take away anything or do anything. We're trying to limit it to, really the corollary to this is, if the water is injured, the city has some kind of recourse. We don't even want to get there. What you guys are doing is great. You're stewards of the land. You've done it for generations in some cases. Continue doing it. But if we get a developer or someone in there that wants to put in whatever it is that could affect the water, that's what this is designed to protect against.
So why don't we write it towards development instead of the activities that's already there?
I think it's written to
It's in there.
exempt the activities that are already there. I think it's written to say that, yeah, these are normal things that you see on a farm that have been going on here forever that we don't want to mess with. This was taken from one that runs pretty consistently around the state. And then we had the public hearing and a couple meetings last time, and we tried to tailor it to this, because you're right, the sandhills here are way different than, something in Rifle or any of that. So I think
Definitely.
that's kind of how we got here.
I don't know, I'm hearing a lot of nays, and we seem to keep beating this dead horse. We're not coming to any agreements here, guys. And I'm already infringed on by the city.
So if we were to ask any of the 5,500 people that live in Brush, whose water could be affected by someone that came and bought a piece of land and decided to start drilling and dumping chemicals in there that would affect our water, and they would probably disagree with you.
Well, I guess I would turn it around as somebody whose wife owns rental properties in Brush. If we have to get lawyers to fight this, I have to gather income revenue, so when the renters come back and say, why did my rent go up? I gotta fight your water system.
And who's gonna pay for the water system when it gets contaminated? Well, those renters.
The renters
Or
in
no,
town?
the property owners, you guys are gonna pay for it if you've got rentals in town.
Yes, we are. And
that's not
several
gonna
of these
go over
people
well
have helped
either.
build this infrastructure in Brush.
Yep.
I mean, it's just a continuing circle.
Mm-hmm. It is. And you guys are doing a good job taking care of your land, and we're truly trying really hard to do this without infringing on the farming that you're doing. This is more looking towards the future.
Well, we always seem to have fun coming at it with a different angle. How would you guys feel, seeing as how your access road and your line is through my place, which was a gentleman's agreement years ago? If we started infringing upon you guys, you could only go out there with a quarter tank of gas. You could only have a pickup with a certain wheelbase. I mean, it just keeps going around here. I'm trying to be decent about this, but it's getting worse instead of better, guys.
So what, do you just not like the entire ordinance, or what part of it do you want us to change? Because we've come to this like 4 times looking for more input, and we apply the input, and we're still getting pushback. And I get that nobody wants to be told what to do on your land. Like, I completely understand that point. But you are told what to do on your land, by the state, by the county. So this is just another layer of protection that we're trying to implement to protect our water and your water.
Okay, the very first meeting, I explained to you that most people that cross my land pay to do it, whether it's high lines, pipelines. That would be a decent way to approach this.
So pay you to cross your land, or just the fact of the ordinance?
Well, you can pay to cross it, or you can pay to enforce your ordinance, which would basically be giving you a right-of-way to help protect this. I think most people would have seen it different that way, would you not?
So if we paid you, the ordinance wouldn't bother you?
You still wouldn't
It
be
would
able to
help.
do, I mean, we could make it stricter if we're gonna pay you money.
But at least it's giving us terms to accept it instead of being told you're going to. It would have been more friendly to start that way, I think. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Stephen Cecil Jr., 24758 County Road K. My dad spoke earlier. I had a prepared statement because I didn't want to speak extemporaneously, but he kind of contradicted a lot of what I was going to say, so I don't want to read it. So my thought, just from the conversation that we've had so far, is the ordinance is a little bit wordy. I mean, a lot of it's stuff that I don't think needs to be in there. And it is confusing to me. I've gone through it 2 or 3 times, and I didn't send back a red line copy just because I got busy with other stuff. But I went through the new ordinance, and I pulled out some areas that, like, I found some that I would want to still have you address if this passes, which, for instance, is where you say certain activities are exempted because they're part of farming, ranching. It's contradictory to me in here when I read this, because in section B, 13760B, it says the following activities are allowed within the watershed protection district, provided there is adherence to best management practices identified by the city. For such activities as normal farming, ranching, everything that you guys probably aren't experts at, you're now determining our best practices. I don't even know our best practices. Everybody, every university, ag university across the country has a different philosophy on best practices. How do you define that? So now we're subject to somebody at the city level for that. And I'm not saying you guys will come after us, but just like it was said earlier, when you're gone and the next regime is in power, council, city staff, they may not interpret it like that. And that's what's worrisome to me. And there's areas like that throughout this ordinance. And I think I've heard rumors, I don't know if it's true or not, but the Ben T project, the water project, is what's maybe driving some of this, because there's a potential reservoir, and that would be on potentially part of our ranch. And we don't want that either. So, we would be willing to fight that if the city doesn't want that either. But probably why you don't want it, in talking to Dale, is that there's a layer of clay that you think is under all this watershed that protects your water from the surface water. So our wells are like 30 feet deep, and probably under there is a layer of clay, and then under that is where you guys pull from, which is like 160 feet. So I think the fear from Dale is that layer of clay would get breached and potentially contaminate your water. Now, I don't know all that, Dale would have to verify that, but that's kind of what I think the issue is. So instead of having all of this, wouldn't it be easier just to say, any kind of major excavation project that could potentially breach that layer, you need to get a permit for? Or go through all this is gonna be through the county or the state anyway, so just partner with them, and you could probably get that same level of protection. With the very first meeting, I brought up the fact that in here somewhere is that what kind of vehicle are you using on your property? I mean, that's like minutia detail. There's a Kirby County road that goes through our ranch. Anybody could drive anything on that Kirby County road and have a wreck and spill something. So you're not regulating any of that, but yet you're regulating the landowners by what kind of vehicle we're driving. It's that kind of, silliness that doesn't make a lot of sense. I will say, you guys have been responsive, the city staff. I've had a lot of questions, you've helped me. Everything I've asked for, you've done, so I was the one that wanted the line drawn on the map. I appreciate that. I understand what you're trying to achieve, because, there's gonna be a lot of changes to Morgan County in the next 50 years, so I understand why you want it. I just think there's a better way, maybe a less wordy document. It was great you got rid of the fees, that kind of stuff, because we don't get any benefit from it yet. We're subject to all of it, so taking away the fees was just the right thing to do, I thought. Let me quickly go through what I was gonna say in my prepared statement, which I'm not gonna read now, is if this passes, which I'm sure it will in some fashion, maybe with a fight, but it probably will pass at some point. I just asked for you guys to always hear us, because we don't have any process, we don't have any say in this democratic process in the city of Brush, yet we're subject to these rules. We're 16 miles away from our headquarters. It takes 16 miles to get here. Who would have thought that we would be subject to city of Brush ordinances? And I think everybody across that watershed feels like that. So what I was asking for in my lengthy response was just, we need a voice, like in the future, because there's stuff that's gonna come up in the future if this ever passes that nobody foresees, and 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 landowners against 6,000 city residents, we don't have a lot of power. But it's kind of un-American from what we all believe in, to take our rights away without a democratic process. It feels like that. So that's kind of what everybody here is expressing. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hey, something came up, just going through the back of my head. My dad was born in 1904. He was 56 years old when I was born. They dug wells by hand. One of the old wells on the homestead pasture that his younger brother had was getting some tailwater from 3 drill, oil wells ran into went through the treater and the tailwater came out. Pits were been full for years and then it would eventually drain out, go down the ditch. And this is at the beginning of the Camp Creek Basin. The very beginning of the Camp Creek Basin. So Dad and John talked about it quite a bit, and it's contaminating that hand-dug well. Pretty shallow well. So Dad, he was the oldest of that. He was the oldest, John was the youngest. And I was 10 years old by then, so he was probably 66, 68, somewhere right in that area. And Dad told him, he says, well, we just need to get a bunch of casing. Puts a perforated casing in the bottom and we'll case that hand-dug well. Now, I remember listening to him, and he told John, he says, all we gotta do, he said, that hand-dug well is 30 feet deep. And all we have to do is case it and put gravel pack around it. And he said, every 10 feet, that will purify that water in that hand-dug well by running through that gravel. Well, by the time they got done and cased that well 30 foot deep, perforations are, I think, 5 or 6 feet on the bottom. So they had 24, 25 feet of gravel pack. The water's purified. It was done. They had done the water samples, everything on it. It was purified. And sometimes I think people jump to conclusions, what it takes to take care of a water problem. And if you're really, really, really worried about it, is this forever? Because Lower Platte or South Platte water claims those wells that are last chance are 1,000 years from the river. Well, that means the last chance dump is 1,000 years from the river. So when that thing flows through Steve Cecil's property, my property, Doty's property, then who's to blame in 940 years, 50 years? Pretty hard to say who. You put a protection district out there 5 miles, but anything can happen outside that 5 miles, and then who's responsible? Everybody in this room that's on that list. That's the thing you don't think of. I mean, they can dump a whole bunch. Now, I know they've got problems with water just south of Steve. We've been there. We've done that. And it's all from the oil field. And I think you're barking up the wrong tree when you worry about Steve, you worry about Doty, worry about anybody on that map, because we do this for a living. We take care of our property. We're not out there dumping some nasty stuff down there. I think you're barking up the wrong tree because it's just going to be, it'll go the wrong direction. Because if I have to keep fighting this fight, I'm going to quit doing business with anybody in Brush, Colorado, and I'm going to tell every business owner. I've already told a couple of them, if this deal keeps going on. I don't have to do business in Brush. I live halfway between Brush and Sterling. It will cost this town immensely, and probably even Morgan. And I'll tell them the same thing. Why I'm not doing business at John Deere, Rudy's Tire. I mean, yeah, we're just a few guys on that list, but figure 20 years out of us not doing business in the town of Brush. I'm not kidding. I will. I've done it in Sterling and Logan County because of a parking ticket in Walmart parking lot. 20 years. Go do the math on it. I figured out it was worth $50,000. Well, times it by everybody on that map.
I second that.
All right, does council have any questions?
I have a question. Just to refer to what you guys asked. They build whatever out there. and you said you'd fight it, right? Whatever, no matter if the amusement park, whatever. What happens if you lose that fight and they build it out there and contaminate our water? Because you couldn't beat that fight. Because their lawyers are better than yours.
We're fighting here. We're not gonna
I
quit.
understand, but that doesn't do us any good or 5,500 people in Rush, Colorado if you lose that fight. You're asking us to put a lot of faith in you guys to go out there. Because who knows what's gonna come out there? We don't know. This is to protect it in the future. That's 5,500 people in this town we need to protect also.
But my only point is, I don't think all this minutia of detail for ranching and farming and chemical spraying and, you know, I mean, it's just like, it's overkill. It seems like you just simplify it with, you know, what are your big threats? And if it's excavating down 50, 100 feet, there's, you know, put a safety barrier in there, make it 30 feet or whatever. I don't know what that layer of clay is, but there's one of your threats.
But that's the problem. We don't know what all the threats could be.
You're the first guys that, all these other guys are experts. They know there's a clay thing down there.
We don't know that there
You
could.
don't know. You're the first guy to admit something.
We don't know what they could build out there. They could put a dump out there. It's hard saying. We have no clue what the threats are. So what we're trying to do is mitigate what the threats aren't, which is farming and agriculture, and try to protect what the threats could be without having to try to put every single one of them in an ordinance.
Well, the other thing that I encountered very early on was, to me, you're trying to affect land use. And I understand that in relation to water pollution, yeah, it is a land use issue. But to me, it feels a lot more than just a water pollution land use control. It's land use, because if I break out sod, you know, we have 10,000 acres. What if I want to put 2,000 acres of wheat in some ground that's perfectly good wheat ground? I'm prohibited from doing that in this ordinance.
No.
Because it's breaking out. I read in there where if you break out more than a few acres, you have to get a permit. And then I could be subject to somebody, and I'm not saying it's you guys, but every one of these city councils across the Front Range have gone very anti-agriculture. And eventually it'll probably come here. And then in 15 years, we're in front of people that don't want anything. And then our land use is impacted, and then our land values are impacted. That's what I see as it's just too much. It's too wordy. It's a template. That's exactly what, Dan, you know, it's a template that every other municipality probably used across the state. And why does it have to be a template? Why can't we just draft something pretty simple that doesn't really restrict our uses, land uses, yet protects your water?
Was your water deteriorated in the last 40 years? Has it?
We haven't had anything yet.
While
You
I,
ain't got a problem.
while I understand that there seems to be a lot of words in this legal document and it can be somewhat wordy, unfortunately, we're in a society and a day and an age where you have to cover everything and think about it. I mean, we now have coffee cups that come out of McDonald's say caution hot because people can't figure that out for themselves, unfortunately. So we have to put more words in there to cover what we don't know, to be prepared for those instances. You brought up a really great point about best management practices. The great thing about legal documents is anything that you don't know their definition to is a legal document's required to have a definition for it. And so what I would ask of you is that on section 13-720 under definitions, this is going to be number A, best management practices, is if you feel that this definition is acceptable, because there is the last sentence of this, and it's quite a large definition, and it says best management practices, this is going to be in the middle, may be found in various publications, manuals, and documents of the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, Colorado State University, and Colorado Department of Transportation, and other sources that may be acceptable to the city. What I like here is the last sentence, and I want to see if this is acceptable. This list is not all-inclusive and does not preclude a person from using other sound practices aimed at reducing or preventing harmful effects of land use activities, including pollution of the air, land, or water resulting from these activities. I take this definition, and Dan, please correct me if I'm wrong, I take this definition as you being the steward of the land saying, I can prove to you that this is the best practice management, here's my proof. That sentence gives them that ability, does it not?
Yeah, and really the reason that that was included in there is, let's say CSU and Wyoming have, you know, this path is great for CSU, this one's good for Wyoming. The city says, yeah, you're not following the CSU one. Well, if you come to us and say, Wyoming says this is good, they're credible, they're reputable, here you go. It allows for that wiggle room.
So,
Nowhere, who makes the decision?
So initially, the city would make the decision.
So you people sitting right here.
So, and it would be based on something like that.
We would have people that know about it advising, just
Right.
like it says in.
But it's no
in
different
this-
than at the beginning when I said, this was written up by somebody that has no clue what they're doing out there. When you can't put 18 inches up to a tank, there's a 30-foot tank at 10 foot around it, times 3 point whatever pi is, it comes out to 53 yards.
That's exempted. It's your ag tank. It's exempted.
I know it, but this whole thing was written by people that don't have a clue. That's my point.
So who do we have write it?
before we get
'Cause
too
we're
far,
Way
Mr.
too
Cecil,
just
Mr. Cecil, do you agree that this definition is acceptable, or do you not agree that it's
Who
acceptable?
makes the decisions, what I asked?
I would like my question answered that I asked before you started. So, Mr. Cecil, do you feel that this definition is something that can cover and give you the freedom to say this is what we feel is the best practice?
My concern with it is in the definitions of best management practices, but then when you read the actual regulation, it says all these activities, which is,
Can you tell me the section that you're in?
There's 13 of them, 13760B. All of those activities, and there's 13 of them, are all determined by the best management practices decided by the city. That's my concern. And my concern is like I said, in 15 years, when you reasonable people aren't here, and there's somebody not reasonable from Boulder that moved in here and doesn't like anything, and then we're subject to their interpretation of best management practices.
And I think that's where that last sentence comes in, right? It says this is not all exhaustive. This is just where we're gonna start. And you're right, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a farmer, I don't know any of that stuff. But if you come to me and show me the reasonable alternative, and then I go to court, you guys don't like, however it's ruled, we go to court, the judge is gonna throw us out of court by saying, yeah, these guys presented a CSU or Wyoming or whatever it is, reasonable alternative, and you improperly kept them from doing whatever they needed to do. Now, I don't think you'll have that with this council, but like you said, if we get Boulder or California or whatever it may be out here, and you don't have that language in there, that's really gonna hurt your ability to find a reasonable best practice that might not be, I don't think you ever wanna just limit it right down one thought, right? I'm sure you guys both run your farms different. I'm sure that you're both reasonable. Probably both make sense to you, but I think having that language in there is really important. And that's part of the reason it's wordy too.
And what you said, Dan, I appreciate that, but where the city has enormous power over us is you can require experts. So just what you said about it'll go to court, most of us won't go to court because we can't afford it. So that's in all these regulations, by the preponderance of the evidence, we have to prove that what we're doing is okay, which is you'll come back and say, give me a soil sample. Well, then we'll have to hire, I don't know, I imagine it'll cost $1,500 to get a soil sample. Then things will just stop because we're not usually inclined to kind of pay that kind of stuff. Where that's what I see across the whole document. And that's where if you could just, I know it's starting from scratch, but just build something that identifies what you're afraid of, and not all these, you're not gonna, the city's not gonna be contaminated by us spraying weeds and building a road, and there's no running water out there, so moving dirt isn't gonna affect anything. The only thing I could
potentially see affecting your water supply is penetrating that clay level. We don't even know where that is. So if somebody wants to build something big that requires excavation, they'll probably have the resources to figure that out, and they can share that with you. But us as farmers and ranchers can't afford all that kind of stuff. So if we want to build a road, for instance, you know, we just build a road and use common sense, but by this, we'd have to get an expert to figure out soils and, you know, you could, and I'm not saying you will, but you could. Whoever's in your position has the power through experts and all that stuff to just regulate us out of business.
Okay, I'm gonna have you, address, everybody's addressing everybody. We started out with, you get to come up once and you address the mayor. And I've kind of slipped on that, but if you could avoid just addressing whoever in the room, and at least get a handle on this a little bit.
Looks like it's working better this way than it was the other way.
Which other way?
Okay, let's try something a little different here and see where we can get. Dale, I got a question for you.
Wait,
Just a general average level, what would be the guesstimation on the clay layer protecting the well field for depth wise?
you need,
Supposed to address the mayor,
Okay.
and then she can ask that of me.
Okay, Madam Mayor, what would be the average depth guesstimation for the clay layer protecting?
do you know what that might be?
It varies depending on where you're at. Out there, it can, because surface elevation changes with those dunes, yeah. And so that clay layer, is my understanding, is at a fairly consistent elevation. I don't have that elevation on me, but it would vary depending on where you're located out in that watershed protection district, would determine the depth of where that clay is at.
So, can we, I know it varies, so for sake of conversation, let's call it 25, 30 foot. Would that be a fair statement? That would kind of encompass some of it?
It could be.
Okay. All right. Myself and these gentlemen, and, sorry, I forgot your name. Julie, there we go. Okay, we're living on 6 inches of topsoil. So maybe if we back up and we talk about that 25, 30 foot layer, none of us have no reason to ever go there. I mean, in reality, is that a fair statement? We have no reason to end up 25, 30 foot deep.
About 4 foot's as deep as I go from the postal.
Unless you drill a well. Correct, but then we're gonna be regulated by the state.
Which we are already.
Correct. So maybe if we reword things to start talking that way, that might be a better way to talk about this.
So why don't we start making a list of these questions like we did before? Cause we could do this all night long, and I'm sure that nobody wants to do this all night long. So can somebody write down questions that we
Lou,
can
you wanna document those for us?
research? So you wanna know how deep,
Yeah, and I'm just for the sake of the discussion, I mean, we all agree, we don't know exactly what it is. And it would be the best engineering guesstimation. Because,
well, and our engineers have probably already done that, we probably have that map somewhere if we,
yeah,
Just a
but,
matter of clarification, we do have some idea where it's at because of previous well logs. And that's what I'm saying, you can't say that it's consistently 25 foot deep across that area.
varies.
It's going to vary. The further you go south, the closer it gets to the surface and the daylights. And so with that in mind, the further you go towards the north, there's more sand on top of it. And so to put a blanket static number of 25 or 30 or whatever you want on it, it doesn't follow.
so, in response to your question, I guess we do know that, we just don't have the map in front of us because it's been mapped.
We are in the process of having it done. We have much better mapping technology these days, and our consultants are actually looking at the well logs and getting us a much better map, not only with the clay layer, but also with the tier shale below.
and I'm not stuck on this number, I'm just using that for a matter of discussion. But maybe that would be a corridor of a better way to go to get everybody to meet in the middle. Is what I'm saying.
It's like have it vary depending on where you are on that map.
Or
The depth of
a
your,
fairly decent blanket statement that works for everybody involved.
But
potentially, Mr. Inslee, not necessarily other gentlemen, that still leaves your arguments as the same arguments, because instead of saying, you know, we're regulating this, now we're regulating it just down here. So your argument still could be that, we're over-regulating, it might hurt your, now you can't potentially sell it for, oil drilling, something, that you'd have to go down in there, and that could potentially hurt the same,
But
wouldn't that
the
be
oil
same
drilling is
argument?
going to be what damages you.
Right,
We can agree on that.
yeah.
Most of me in the neighboring community, like I said, we're worried about 6 inches to 4 foot.
Well,
for a
I'm
fence
just
post.
thinking, no, I hear you, and I obviously, I agree with you completely. I'm just trying to think, if we're making the same arguments, one can make that same argument, just say, you know, if you're telling us we can't drill, go 15 feet down, that same argument is still can be made from that, from
I
your
think
guys'
it would take the agricultural side out of it. I agree if an oil well company comes in, windmills, the building of the proposed reservoir, they're
Yeah.
going to move more than 25 foot deep of dirt. Then you're getting into those guys, which is what I understand you guys as a council would like to protect.
Which is why excavation is a regulated activity, and excavation is defined as 5 feet or more deep. And you just said you're not gonna go more than 4 feet, so it's not gonna affect you. But we need to get a clear list of questions.
Well, I guess that's my
and-
fault. The water line would be the 5.5 to 6 foot for a water line going to a stock tank.
Continue this, so you dig your water lines 5.5 to 6 feet deep. Okay,
Is that a
so
fair
if you
statement,
have
everybody?
questions, maybe write them down on the, something and leave them over there, or let Loranda know, but we need to continue this on another hearing because we're not getting anywhere.
Could I have one more minute?
Yes.
Sorry,
Yes,
I
it's
saved my stuff
council's-
till the end, sorry guys.
Council's turn, so
Yes.
council,
Thank you. So, just help me think through this, guys. Like I was just saying, if we said, I know some of the arguments just touch on, we're telling you what to do on your property, at all. How much that's gonna be a problem no matter what, even if we dig out farther down. Is that correct or no? Mr. Jabauer? Yeah, okay. That's what I was trying to, because we can make this easier, but I think we're still gonna come to the same problem, where, and it's completely understandable. You don't want us telling you what to do. I get that. So I'm just trying to make sure, because we're gonna talk through all this stuff, and we might end up at the same place anyway. Our goal is to make it, we have to protect our residents, and we wanna work with you all. So, I like this process, a bit uncomfortable, but hey, that's how government works, right? So I just wanna make sure, if we're working together, we're actually gonna make progress, as opposed to, we go through another 3 months of this, well, you're still telling me what to do, go to hell. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what I'm thinking through, so that we're all kind of seeing eye to eye, do you know what I mean? All right, thanks, gentlemen.
Mayor, did you say it was time for council to have their discussion? Great. Do you mind if I start?
no, go ahead.
I do not necessarily disagree with Commissioner Westhoff in that if you change a map, that you should make sure that your ordinance matches that map. Because we have such a detailed section in township description in section 13.730, I would just like that reviewed just to make sure that it actually does match the map. It's very detailed, so we could take off a section or two, I don't know. But I don't necessarily disagree that that shouldn't be looked at. The other question I have is actually for you, Dan, in that, is it possible, and I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know, but is there a way to include a section or a provision for, I don't wanna say arbitration, that's not necessarily the word I wanna use, but conflict resolution possibly, or something to that effect, because I hear Mr. Cecil's point in that if there was a conflict and they had to get their own experts, we as a city have the means, and we are asking them to prove themselves without the means necessarily. We can't assume that they have the means to bring in the experts. So I don't know what that conflict resolution section might look like, but I feel like a conflict resolution section might be, or it might be arbitration, I don't know, but maybe it's just something that we could look at so that we are providing that. Lastly, I do not in any way, shape, or form agree that anyone should be paid to follow the law. No one pays me to wear my seatbelt. No one pays me to drive the speed limit. In fact, I have to pay to protect myself, insurance, so that in case someone else isn't following the law, I can be covered for damages. So I absolutely do not feel that any money should be given for someone to follow the law. And that's the last I'll say on it.
Anybody else? No, it's council's turn. We'll probably end up continuing this, but we
Can I
can't
just
go on
address
all
those
night.
points real briefly? The re-noticing based on the map, I think that is that's the ultra safe way to go. I think that if council wanted to proceed forward, because we are taking the whole ball and just same players but fewer of them, that you could decide one way or another here tonight, if you choose. I do like the dispute resolution, and I'm happy to look into that to say that, let's decide this on the merit and the safety of the water rather than who has the bigger bank account. So yeah.
I
happy to look
don't
into that.
necessarily disagree with, what you have written for the map and the details, and I don't disagree with sending out letters. I just feel like since this is probably gonna be rewritten anyway, let's just go ahead and make sure that it's right before it gets put out again and it matches the new map. 'Cause if we weren't redoing it, then I would say I'm sure that it's great, but let's just look at it. So I appreciate that.
Is there a way, towards Mr. Cecil's point, of them not being able to afford to prove to us that they're not gonna affect the water, as like a good faith showing, since we didn't offer financial compensation for basically the use or whatever of their land, is there a way that the city can, in some fashion, take on some of the cost in helping landowners if it was a major project? I'm not sure how to word this. The current landowners, and it ends at the current landowners. But toward, we can help them figure out if what they're doing is going to affect the water quality with some kind of financial compensation, or use our water engineers, or does what I'm saying make sense?
It does.
So like,
If they have a project, current landowners have a project that they want to do, they could come in and maybe speak with Monty, and Monty would be able to say, so what you're asking is that we provide the expert advice, so that they can know if that project falls within the scope of work that they're able to complete,
and I
right?
think that would have to encompass like a large project. If you're trenching a water line to your house, trench the water line to your house type of thing. I mean, if you're worried about it, maybe come in and talk to Monty and say, hey, we're trenching a water line, is this gonna affect? I don't even expect you guys to do that. So, I mean, like, you're not gonna do it. I already know what you're gonna do and what you're not gonna do. You're not gonna come down here and ask for permission to trench a water line to a buried hydrant. It's not gonna happen. But I think what we're trying as a council to encompass is large projects that would affect that groundwater in large areas. I mean, something Dale told me about the clay layer is it's already not impervious, because that's how it gets filled back up. I mean, rainwater is already finding ways through the clay. But I think what we're trying to do is keep major issues from affecting the water quality in large ways. So, and I do get the concern about a future council not being real friendly to agriculture, and that's a real valid concern. And I'm hoping that, by reading the ordinance, I feel like it gives you guys the freedom you need, just by stating that if it's current practices, you're covered. But, the other thing I'm worried about with the arbitration is there some way? So one of my major concerns with this from the very start is they come in to get a permit and who tells them yes? You do.
I or gal.
Okay, when you two are gone, how does this ever come back to us? You know, like, so if it's denied, does it come to council? And then we can say, hey, wait a minute, because what if there's somebody in your two positions in the future that isn't, you know, agriculture friendly?
Therefore, the appeals process is written in there.
And that
Council has final say.
So council has final say after the appeal. That still doesn't address if the council is an issue.
Addressing all those things would add more words.
Well, so you're right.
Council.
It goes to staff for the original permit. And I guess let me back up a little bit. Some of you guys have heard this, some of you haven't. I represent quite a few municipalities. Quite a few of them have this. I was completely unaware that most of them have this because the number of times where a landowner would come and get a permit, extremely limited. Usually when it is, it's something like a septic tank, and those are permitted by, what is it, not the county, but the.
Northeast Colorado.
Right,
Health department.
so you would go to them, you're gonna have to go to them anyway, you come here and say, the county said, or the Northeast Colorado said it's good, you'd be on your merry way. So, in the rare cases when you do come for a permit, and Dale and Monty aren't here, and you have someone who totally does not agree with you, and is out to get you, and this is worst case scenario, right? Then you apply, or appeal to the council, who would then, they have to be held to a reasonable standard, right? This is the best practices thing. You bring CSU or Wyoming in here, and they make an arbitrary and capricious decision that isn't gonna hold up, and that's an appeal straight to the district court. And if I'm here, I'm gonna tell them, you can't rule like that. You can't just base your ruling on your feelings, not facts. You can't base it on anything other than the data. If I'm not here, then it goes to the state and they'll tell the council that. So there are ways, there's appeals in there. I think it's gonna be exceedingly rare that you're gonna see permits. I think it's gonna be exceedingly rare that you're gonna see a permit denied. I think we could put more in here about the appeal process, but I'm not sure it'd benefit us at this point.
One other thing I was thinking of is, the cost of engineering or looking at something environmentally, if it's gonna have an impact or not. Because it's water related, you know, maybe we could set up just, a small fund. Well, we've got consulting funds already, so it's already in our budget. But if a property owner, not a third party that's developing a big project, but if a property owner came in and requested a permit or asked about a permit, we could also offer that baseline review of the project right up front at the city's cost. So that, if someone's building a large shop and starting a small business in it, at our cost, we'll cover that basic review of the project.
I think that covers Justin's point.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's what I wanna see, cause
And
I think like major projects, like you're thinking like developed projects, the developer's gonna pay those costs. And I don't think any of you have plans of doing anything like that on your ground now. And if you do, the developers have that stuff in their funding already. So, but I would like to see something like that. I think that's a great idea, to where we can do the initial, you know, plan review. I don't see a problem with taking some of that financial responsibility off of current landowners. You know, if that's something you guys are interested in, we can go down that avenue. If not, if it's not gonna change anything, then I don't know if we'll mess with it, but I think that's a good step in the right direction.
so on that one, staff will review it with, Dan after we think it through a little bit, and with Dale, and we'll come back to council with that.
What about our silent guys, Larry, Kevin?
I actually have a question for Dan.
Nice.
In regards to the other municipalities that you represent, how similar is this ordinance to them?
I would say this is more towards the lax side of it, and I think a large part of that is because this is an agricultural community. I represent a couple communities in like Grand County that you're not gonna grow anything up there, so those are very, very more restricted. But this is probably towards the more things are permissive without a permit, so.
So you do represent municipalities that are more onerous than this proposed ordinance?
Yeah, Grandview is the first one that comes to mind, and they're, I think theirs is actually written well past the 5 mile. I think it includes tributary and goes all the way up to the headwaters, which is 16 miles out of town.
Good surface water.
Yeah. But theirs is, just off the top of my head, more onerous than this.
Are there municipalities that are similar to this that have similar circumstances, like well fields, for instance, like Brush has?
You know, one of the really good things that Brush has done is, I'm more work in general municipal law, and you guys have retained a water attorney for this who specializes in this, and that's who we started with. And everything that's on here that would require a permit to, you know, I want to do X on my land, it requires a permit, is a result of your water attorney saying, yep, I've seen this in litigation, I've seen this in court, engineers have said this has caused a problem. And that's kind of how we started is, yeah, all these things will or can harm your water. And then we tried to have these public hearings and tailor it to the specific needs of Brush. So I think you're at a good point. I think he's in a much better position to answer that question than I am.
Okay, thank you.
Make it quick. First of all, I want to say, nobody looked forward to this at all. None of you up here enjoys this. Nobody wanted to deal with this, but it's something we have to deal with. I can understand where you guys are upset, I really can. I really understand that. Is there something we're gonna put out that you guys are gonna agree with, if it tells you the smallest thing to do in your land? Probably not. You guys are gonna find something, right? And I understand why you're upset, I really do. Someone made the point to us that in 50 years, there might be a hippie council up here that goes against you. There might. In 50 years, there might be someone out there that buys your land that hurts us. So I hope you can understand, that's why we want that well. We're covering our own butts, okay? We want to make sure that the 5,500 people, and probably 6,000 more in this land are covered. There's no ulterior motive here that we just thought, well, you know what we should do? We should put our thumb on the guys out there. But that's not what we want. We want to protect people as well, guys. We're not looking to take anything from you. You came here, you've filled out questions before, and these guys have done a real good job of trying to answer them and trying to work around it already, guys. And if there's more, that's fine. But I'm gonna say right now, we need to figure out tonight what the questions are, what your concerns are, and if they're gonna rewrite it, then it needs to be done, you know, and this needs to be figured out, guys. And I understand, like I said, I understand where you're coming from, but let's figure it out tonight, what exactly you want. The questions you have, let's get them done tonight. Is that fair? Because, I mean, otherwise, we can come back and do this for 3-4 months, and then it's another thing okay, well, what about this? What about this? What about that? Well, what about all this, okay? If you have genuine concerns, let's get them out tonight. I'm all about that. Let's make a list. Let's do that. Is that fair?
Do you kind of have a list from conversation? I think Loranda's been taking notes the whole time. We don't really need to revisit a list.
I don't mean to be aggressive. I
Make a
mean,
list.
when Kevin said it, I think that's true. That, I mean, and nobody wants to be told to do on their land. You know, I own a home in town. They came to me and said this, and this. I would ask questions. We'd have a discussion. Well, what do I have to stop doing I'm doing now? And if they told me, well, nothing. You know, or they told me, you gotta walk in your back door from now on, no using your front door anymore, then yeah, we got problems, you know? But I mean, if there's something to a point where it's not gonna affect me, I mean, we have a genuine conversation about that, guys. So if there's issues tonight, Loretta's taking notes, let's get it all done right now, if there's questions, if there's concerns, like Lance, Mr. Inslee brought up with the 5 foot or whatever, you know, I mean, let's get it done, guys. Cause I mean, this could go on for years.
I think a lot of these regulated activities are stuff that require permits through the county anyway. The county's covering their butt with the ordinances and stuff that they've put forth. And that's what we're trying to do with this ordinance, is cover our interest in the water under the property. And that's all we're trying to do. Where the state and the county are doing ordinances that far exceed just protecting water. So we're not implementing anything that's a whole lot over and above what you're already required to ask permission to do on your property. We're just wanting to be notified if that could possibly affect the water. And I think that's what the permit is trying to address, is just notification of something that might affect our water.
And if I can ask one more question, ballpark, Monty or Dale, whomever wants to answer this. Our water gets contaminated, we have to build a new facility. What's that run?
Millions?
I mean,
For us to have to do something now, right now, we're already looking at, if we were to do it today, it could be in the neighborhood 26, 30, 40 million.
I mean,
Easily.
we can all go out to our cars and count our change, but we don't got that laying around, guys. You know what I mean? That's big for us. I mean, I understand, you guys wanna put businesses and stuff, we don't wanna see that happen. We don't want that, but $26 million to taxpayers, that's a chunk of change for these guys too, you know? We have to look out for their best interest. We understand why you're angry, I understand why you're angry. But at the end of the day, that's a big deal. That's a huge problem. That's not something you wanna take a chance on, you know?
So to follow up on what Larry's saying, there are definitely two ways we could be doing this. Collaborative, where we're trying to figure out how to make this best for everybody. We're a community. Like I've mentioned before, we couldn't exist without you guys couldn't exist without it. We're a community. So there's two ways we could do this. Work together, collaborative, try to make it work for everybody as much as we can. Obviously, nobody gets everything they want. Because we have to protect our interests, as these guys very well said. The other way we could do things is, three of you said you're gonna sue us tonight. We could sit up here and cover our ass. Here's what we're gonna do to not get sued, and let's go. We're not doing that. We're trying to work together. Because we care, and that's important to us. Because again, community is what's important. So, anyway, that's just my 2 cents.
Well said. Okay. I don't have anything that you guys haven't already said. I think this is important, and we're trying really hard to work with you guys. But like Larry said, it sounds like we're never gonna make you happy. So, we're just gonna do what we can and see what we can do, but I would look for a motion to either continue or close this hearing.
I'm sorry, could I throw one more thing out real quick?
Yes.
Could we, so we're talking about, getting everything we need in, could we give it till like tomorrow to get emails or something if you guys have other questions?
Well, if we continue it, Kevin, it'll
Oh, yeah, you're right.
It'll be
I'm sorry.
pushed off till
Yeah,
next
thank you.
time, so these guys have a chance to
Yeah,
get their
you're right, thank you.
concerns.
I would move to
Kevin,
continue.
don't ever make me.
I apologize.
We have to be specific. The date will be May 9th. the next
Okay.
meeting.
So, yep,
I would move to continue to May 9th.
okay.
I'll second.
Roll call vote. Any discussion? Sorry.
Just, please, guys, make sure you get your concerns into Loranda, so we know, okay? Please make sure. I mean, this is, let's get it all on the table now.
Or any of us too, I imagine. We can pass everything on to you.
Right.
So however is easiest.
And the more specific you can be, the better it'll be for us and better be for you, so.
Can we get an email address to send to Loranda? Or the
Absolutely.
city, or wherever it needs to go?
Yes. I will provide that for you, yes.
Thank you.
Roll call vote.
Counselor Guerrero,
Yes.
Counselor Spradlin,
Yes.
Counselor Lundstrom.
Yes.
Counselor Klinkhammer. Are you still with us?
You fell asleep on us.
Wow, I'm impressed.
Counselor Stroud,
Yeah.
Counselor Tyree,
Yes.
Mayor Sherman,
Yes.
could I have just a couple minutes to go get some business cards for?
Yep. So we will continue this to May 9th. Miranda will get you all a business card. And I'll give her a minute to go grab those. So then I get up to the second reading, right?
Everyone can be happy about Russell Wilson though, right?
Yes.
No?
I'm ecstatic, but I'm,
Oh, yeah, you're a
I'm also
bandwagon.
from Washington, so, like, I'm ecstatic.
Stiff or what?
Yeah, but I think we've got the rezoning first.
Okay.
And then we'll go that way.
This should be quick and easy because these are all.
Yeah, and I'll kind of.
You guys are
go
troopers.
through it and try to make it easier.
You're stuck. Maybe we should put, like, your guys' staff reports.
Okay, so next we will do, so we'll skip the second reading of this ordinance. We'll move on to the second reading of ordinance number 895-22. The City of Brush, Colorado rezoning certain real property from planned unit development to medium density residential district. And we've got a report from Dan Cobb. Oh shoot, we don't have Larry, sorry.
Start over.
I think he thought we recessed.
I imagine too, if we wanted to let these guys get out of here, they probably could not have to sit around and listen to the rest of our nonsense unless you wanted to.
You're welcome to stay.
Yeah, please. But yeah, feel free to leave if you want to. Thank you guys so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
See ya.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Thank
Steve.
You guys know what property rights is? When you own something, you own it. And your name ain't on my deed. Remember that.
Have a good night, sir.
Get that out of the way before we're doing something.
What is it with you and White Rice Krispy Treats? You like them, don't you?
Miranda buys these home style ones,
She's the best snack mom.
and they're like, they're literally like I just made it in my kitchen. Like they're soft and they're gooey. They're better than the ones in the blue wrapper. And I only eat them when I'm here, so I get one every 2 weeks. Apparently Miranda's my dealer.
There goes Larry.
There he is. Are you done, princess?
I got a little more battery. I hate you, Mayor.
Okay. Now we can do our second reading of ordinance number 895. An ordinance of the City of Brush, Colorado rezoning certain real property from planned unit development to medium density residential district. Dan Cobb, our city attorney, has the report.
And this is, again, just finalizing the rezoning that you guys approved probably 3 meetings ago now. Happy to answer any questions. Planned unit development? It's essentially a zoning that allows for uses that aren't
This is the,
usually used in regular zoning. So like to medium density residential.
so this is one we've already had the first reading, so we would just need to have a motion on the second reading.
To approve or?
To approve on second reading.
I move that we approve on second reading ordinance number 895-22, an ordinance of the City of Brush, Colorado, rezoning certain real property from planned unit development to medium density residential district.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Counselor Tyree?
Yes.
Counselor Durrell?
Yes.
Counselor Lindstrom?
Yes.
Counselor Stroud?
Yes.
Counselor Klinkhammer?
Yeah.
Counselor Spradlin?
Yes.
Mayor Sherman?
Yes. All right. We have another public hearing. We have a petition filed by Clinton and Daniel McDonald for a subdivision of 110 Emerson Street and 422 Curtis Street. I will open the public hearing with us, and we'll have a staff report by Monty Torres.
Okay, this is a project that Rick Krogling had been working on. Some of the specifics on this are, I'll try and make it as simple as possible. We had a property here in town that it's a single lot, and it had two properties on it, two structures on it. And one was a house, the other one has been a rental for, I believe, 25 plus years, maybe even longer than that. But the same residents have lived there for quite a while. And the new owners of the property, they asked if they could get approved to have the properties separated so that they could sell off one or both, and so that was their request. And the pretty reputable company that's been doing the work, so that was a plus. The variances that they needed were the lot sizes were a little bit smaller than standard, but in that area there are other houses and structures on lots the same size, so we didn't feel like it was an issue. And some of the things that we were asking for was that if they are going to have two separate properties now, they need to separate the utilities. And so each has to have its own standalone water, sewer, electrical, gas, so there can be standalone. And that's a requirement by law. So you can't have a house on one lot, but the water's coming from another person's house. And so that was pretty simple for us to agree upon. And then all the utilities also need to come up to code. So sometimes in the past, we've had situations where someone's had a sewer line and it went through someone else's property, or it didn't have the cleanouts in them. Some of these properties, the electrical's not the best, and so you need to bring those up to code. And the applicants agreed to those as well. And the applicants are not here tonight, and so they can't speak on their own behalf. But in the packets that you received, it's got all the information. Staff is very comfortable with it, and we think it's okay to move forward with approving this request. And so this is a public hearing.
So, we can have public testimony if there's any member of the public that has, members of the public have the opportunity to make statements either in support or in opposition of the subdivision. Anyone addressing council must come first to the podium and state your name and address before making your comments. Each party giving testimony will be given one opportunity to speak and must direct all questions regarding the application to the mayor. Do we have anyone for public testimony on this one?
Want to do this one too? It'll be fun. No?
Does council have any questions?
When do they have to do the utility stuff? Like, is that, does that happen after we approve this?
Once it's approved, they need to get it done, pretty immediately. And they might even have it done already. I know they've put up privacy fences between the properties on the new proposed property line. Have you seen anything come in, Dale, in regards to new services for water, sewer?
Nothing as of yet, although it's been discussed, and they are aware that they do have to purchase new water and sewer service, as this would be a separate property. That's a requirement of it.
So how do they do, this is just for my own information, being a plumber, how do they get a separate sewer from the front house to the alley?
They can do it, they can add it, they can bring in another sewer from the backside where it comes out, but also keep in mind, it's not uncommon for multiple properties to share one sewer line. We don't prefer it.
Okay, that's what I was.
Wherever it ties in, they can hook onto that and make another service, so.
So there still would have to be some sort of easement verbiage in the rear property, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Because I didn't know if we were making them go into the street and down, or if they could still bring that service through the.
No, you couldn't go to the street, however, Just by the layout nature of it itself, there would have to be an easement regardless.
Okay.
From the front house to get to
To
the back.
alley, correct, yes.
And we are making them separate the sewer.
That would be probably our,
I haven't had that direct conversation with them, how that one's gonna work, but we'll ask that question.
it's not uncommon for, to utilize the same sewer services, and there should be some sort of codified agreement between the two property owners that, they share the maintenance on it. For example, over on Howell Street, there's a set of apartments, or not a duplex, but a quadplex or whatever, and they only have one sewer line. And they all feed into that before it drops into the sanitary.
Okay.
So it's not uncommon for us to have, multiple residences being served by one sewer line. However, their plant investment fee is their buy-in as it is a separate property. That would still have to be separate. Same with the water service, we would have to have that physically separated as well. If one particular property did not pay their water bill and we had to shut them off, we couldn't shut off the other property. So
Sure.
it would both have to be that way. The sewer services, it's not the same.
So that might be something that you let them know, that they probably, so like who's gonna make a decision, whether they gotta do two sewers or what?
Well, we'll visit with them pretty quick, but it appears to me, if I'm reading this correctly, in the packet that they've got, looks like they're gonna connect to the one going through the easement, is what it appears to be.
Okay.
And then each will have its own separate one.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? If nothing else, I would look for a motion to close the public hearing or continue.
I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Counselor Spradlin?
Yes.
Counselor Klinkhammer?
Here.
Counselor Stroud?
Yes.
Counselor Garrell?
Yes.
Counselor Lindstrom?
Yes.
Counselor Tyree?
Yes.
Mayor Sherman?
Yes. Next, we have Proclamation number 2022-3 in recognition of National Hospital Week. And we have Counselor Stroud is going to read this one for us.
Thank you, ma'am. To recognize National Hospital Week 2022 and to honor the service and dedication of healthcare workers nationwide and in our Brush community. Whereas National Hospital Day was created in 1921 as a way to encourage trust in hospitals in the wake of the Spanish flu outbreak of 1918. It was later turned into a week in 1953, coinciding with Florence Nightingale's birthday to honor her role in revolutionizing hospital care in the mid-1800s and whereas for the past 69 years, hospitals across the country have come together to celebrate its history, technology, and dedicated professionals, and whereas National Hospital Week highlights every hospital, health system, and person involved in keeping our community healthy and providing the structure to deliver health care, and whereas East Morgan County Hospital and its attached clinics and departments are essential to the Brush community and are trusted to provide top-quality care and service, and whereas East Morgan County Hospital and its clinics have tirelessly continued the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic head-on, protecting and treating our community while putting themselves at risk, and whereas this week and always the Brush community extends its gratitude to our heroes in healthcare for their dedication and sacrifice. Therefore, be it resolved that the Brush City Council formally declares May 8th through 14th, 2022 as Brush Hospital Week in the city of Brush, Colorado, and publicly honors the service of healthcare workers in our community and in communities all across our nation.
Thank you. I would look for a motion to approve that proclamation.
We approve Proclamation number 2022-3.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Counselor Stroud?
Is that me? I'm sorry.
Yes. Counselor Stroud?
Yes.
Counselor Tyree?
Yes.
Counselor Garrell?
Sorry, yes.
Counselor Klinkhammer?
Yeah.
Counselor Lindstrom?
Yes.
Counselor Spradlin?
Yes.
Mayor Sherman?
Yes. Next, we have Proclamation number 2022-4 in recognition of International Firefighters Day. Counselor Gurrell will read this one.
In recognition of International Firefighters Day, to designate the date of May 4th, 2022 as International Firefighters Day. Whereas firefighters dedicate countless hours, selfless time away from their families, and take ultimate risks to serve their communities. And whereas firefighters in our community volunteer their time and leave their families, jobs, and personal lives to answer the call. And whereas the role of a firefighter is to respond to emergencies involving involving life, property, or environment, and to fight together against an enemy that can quickly destroy lives. And whereas the men and women of the fire service industry are a special group of individuals that exude extraordinary commitment and exceptional courage to tirelessly serve and protect others. And whereas International Firefighters Day was created in 1999 after 5 firefighters tragically died during a wildfire in Australia, when the direction of the wind changed suddenly and engulfed them in flames. It is celebrated on May 4th because that is St. Florian's Day, and St. Florian was the first commanding firefighter of an actual Roman battalion, saving many lives, and is considered the patron saint of firefighters. And whereas International Firefighters Day is a time when the world's community can recognize and honor the sacrifices that firefighters make to ensure their communities are safe as possible, and remember those that have given the ultimate sacrifice of their lives to protect the safety of others. Whereas we show our support and appreciation to the firefighters and their families in our community. Therefore, be it resolved that the Brush City Council formally declares May 4th, 2022 as International Firefighters Day in the city of Brush, Colorado, given under the hand of the mayor and the seal of the city of Brush this 25th day of April, 2022.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve that one.
I'd like to do this one, and I'd like to just say, I don't know how many of you have heard about the fire that was in Nebraska over the weekend, but this one kind of hits home. We had some friends lose a family member in that fire, an ex-fire chief, and 11 firefighters are injured. Countless trucks, it's like 140,000 acres. And it's a bad deal, so this one's pretty important, I think, and I would be honored to motion this one. So I move to approve Proclamation number 2022-4.
I will tearfully second that.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Counselor Lindstrom,
Yes.
Counselor Spradlin,
Yes.
Counselor Stroud,
Yes.
Counselor Klinkhammer,
Yeah.
Counselor Tyree,
Yes.
Counselor Garrell,
Yes.
Mayor Sherman.
Yes. Next, we have Proclamation number 2022-5 in recognition of National Public Safety Telecommunicator Week. And I will have Counselor Lindstrom read this one.
To designate the week of April 10th through April 16th, 2022 as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. Whereas the Morgan County Communications Center plays a vital role in the protection of human life and property in our community, and whereas the Morgan County Communications Center has been successfully serving the public's safety communication needs of Morgan County through efficiently coordinating emergency services to ensure the health and safety of all the public in our community, and whereas while enduring long hours, abnormal schedules, and handling frequent life and death emergencies, Morgan County's public safety telecommunicators set high standards in performing their duties in a dedicated, diligent, and compassionate manner. And whereas public safety communicators provide a critical communication link between the public and police, fire, and EMS providers. And whereas our community public safety communicators personnel serve the public daily in countless ways without due recognition by beneficiaries of their services, and whereas we recognize and commend the dedicated service provided by these public safety telecommunicators in our community and across the nation. Therefore, be it resolved that the Brush City Council formally declares April 10th through April 16th, 2022 as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in the city of Brush, Colorado.
Thank you. Very well read.
It was a little much.
You know what? I like a little flair, Justin.
That was very radio.
I
of
mean, yes,
you.
I'm with the firefighters, you know what I mean?
You're just trying to get out of doing it over again?
That's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying to do. Never be good at something you hate.
I would look for a motion to approve that proclamation.
I would move to approve Proclamation number 2022-5.
Second.
Jinx.
Yeah.
Always one.
Any discussion?
Pretty quick there.
A roll call vote.
Counselor Tyree?
Yes.
Counselor Gravel?
Yes.
Counselor Klinkhammer?
Yeah.
Counselor Lundstrom?
Yes.
Counselor Strauss?
Yeah.
Counselor Spradlin?
Yes.
Mayor Sherman?
Yes.
feel
I would
we-
just like to point out that Counselor Klinkhammer is on a cruise ship somewhere in the middle of the ocean, and he has hung on this entire time. So,
I was gonna say, I feel
Good job.
we've woke him up like 7 or 8 times at this point.
good job, Counselor. Okay, next we have the Ready Grant application, for the Ready Grant application approval for Brush Agri Park Road Monty.
Okay, so the Brush Agri Park, most council members are pretty aware that it is located north of town, about a half mile north of the Wendy's. That project used to be that project area used to be an old feedlot years ago, and the city made a lot of investment into it as far as purchasing it, cleaning up the place, and then we started building business sites out there. And so to date, we have the Colorado land processors that have located out there, then also, can't remember the name of the solar company right now, but a solar company put a community solar farm, which they lease property from the city, and then we get lease payments as well as money back through the amount of energy they produce at the solar garden. So it's worked out pretty well. We currently have a business that has an interest in locating out there at the Brush Agri Park. And the area that we're looking at is what's called the third phase of this project. We've had multiple phases, but we submitted a grant to help put in the sewer lines and then also the actual road, curb and gutter, and some stormwater out there. And that way we complete the loop. So if you've been out there and you drive out to the Colorado land processors, you get a certain point and then the road ends. So this will allow us to complete that loop and potentially attract another business into the community. We're pretty excited about it because we've been working on this for years now, and it's good to see businesses locate there. We got notified, well, one bit of history is twice before the Ready Grant has helped us out with this project. And so the help that they've given us is the money to put in the water infrastructure. So the first grant, we received about $150,000 approximately for extending water out to the agri park. And then the second time was looping the water through the agri park. And that was another approximately $150,000. So it's worked out pretty good. Last year, we applied for this same grant. And when we applied for this grant, we applied because we were anticipating the fire training center being located out there on that site. I realize that plans have changed, and we're looking now at the fire training center next to the fire building. But we still need to continue on with this project, and so this project, we submitted for this grant last week. They only gave a 30-day open window to apply, and so we had to come up with some engineering estimates, redo some of the engineering out there through our consulting engineer. And last week we applied for it, but it does require the council to approve the grant. And so the only bad news, and it's not bad, it's still potentially funding for it, is that the cap used to be $150,000 for the grant. They've dropped it down to $50,000, so we're applying for $50,000 worth of grant funding. But the overall project is gonna somewhere be around $900,000 when you put in street, curb and gutter, stormwater drainage, and a pond, as well as a sewer line that goes out into the highway. But that will complete the project, and not only for this next phase and these 6 to 8 different business sites, but then in the future, if we grow to the east of there, this will allow for, we have the water there now, but now we need the wastewater to go out to the east to more property that we own. So it'll put us in a good position in the future if a larger industry comes to our area, because they're gonna need that wastewater capacity as well as the access. So it's a Ready Grant, and a grant amount is $50,000 that we're requesting. The matching funds from the city is $871,150. What I'll say about that is we did put this in the budget last year, not to this amount, or it's actually in this year's budget, not to this total amount, but keep in mind, if we have a business come in, the money that they purchased the land from helps pay for this $870-some thousand. And so, we're pretty excited about it, and it does put us in a position for another large business that the city and the county are working on, having discussions about a potential location. So we're pretty excited about it.
Very good. I would look for a motion to approve the Ready Grant application.
Move we approve the Ready Grant application. On Brush Agri Park?
Second.
Any discussion?
Premature.
Okay, roll call vote.
Counselor Garrell,
Yes.
Counselor Strauss,
Yes.
Counselor Lindstrom.
Yes.
Counselor Tyree,
Yes.
Counselor Spradlin,
Yes.
Counselor Klinkhammer,
Yeah.
Mayor Sherman.
Yes. All right, next we have the 2022 paving projects for Del Colray.
Thank you, Mayor. We, on April 8th, actually earlier on, last part of March, put out for bids for our 2022 paving projects. These paving projects include milling down and putting down a 2-inch layer of asphalt over Hospital Road from Mill Street down to US 34, and then from Mill Street from Carson Street, or Hester Street, over to Hospital Road. And so it's going to be the same thing that happened down on the highway where we milled it down and then put a new layer of pavement over it. They're starting to get rough. In addition to that, we're looking at a full-depth reconstruction of the 300 block of Sample Street and the paving of the alley between Clayton and Cameron in the 200 block. And then also, we're also looking at some curb gutter sidewalk and then paving the 200 block of East and Earl. With that, we had a pre-bid meeting on April 8th, and we only had 2 interested parties looking at this here. And unfortunately, we only received 1 bid for these projects, and that would happen to be Martin Marietta Fort Collins. Their bid was $923,995.25. The city had budgeted $824,600 for it, and so this represents an increase of $99,395. And looking at some of the schedules, most of them came in really good. However, the major increase happened to be the subgrade and base work on East Earl Street, which we only received after we approved the budgetary amounts. And with that, and there's also some inflation that has to be factored into that as well. And so with that, staff is recommending council award the bid to Martin Marietta for $923,995.25, and also approve the mayor signing the agreement once we're ready to make this happen.
Special note is that this is one of the city council's priorities. You know, for the next 3 to 5 years, we said we would do a heavy focus on streets. And so, realizing that the numbers are a little bit high, our fund, our 2A fund, where a lot of our street money comes from, is in very good shape, and highly recommend to do this because with inflation rates, everything's gonna get much more expensive. And then once a lot of communities start using their ARPA funds, you're gonna see a lot more demand, which drives up the price. And so the sooner we get this done, the better. And also as a side note, you know, I've given Dell the thumbs up to seek some contractors to come in to do some preservation maintenance of our roads, which means some additional crack filling to get ahead of things, and then slurry coating or seal coating, same
Seal coating.
difference. And chip sealing potentially, but we're still working out those details.
And keep in mind that one of the things they did tell me right now is that they're expecting a very large increase in oil prices in June. That's why we want to get them locked in as soon as we possibly can, because then they can lock in their suppliers as well.
Thank you, Dale.
We need a motion on that
Do
one,
we
don't
need a motion?
Yes.
Well, I know
To
we need a
award the bid
motion.
to
You wanna-
Martin
you
Marietta
want
for
it now?
$923,995.25 and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement.
Yes, okay.
I move that we approve the paving bid to Martin Marietta for $923,995.25, and for the mayor to sign the agreement.
My second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Counselor Spradlin,
Yes.
Counselor Tyree,
Yes.
Counselor Garrell,
Yes.
Counselor Stroud,
Yes.
Counselor Klinkhammer,
Yes.
Counselor Lindstrom,
Yes.
Mayor Sherman.
Yes. Moving on to finance.
I move to approve disbursements and payroll for April 11th, 2022 through April 25th, 2022, totaling $324,916.75.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Counselor Tyree,
Yes.
Counselor Klinkhammer,
Yeah.
Counselor Garrell,
Yes.
Counselor Stroud,
Yes.
Counselor Spradlin,
Yes.
Counselor Lindstrom.
Yes.
Mayor Sherman.
Yes. Staff reports. Derek Boss, Chief of Police. Finally.
Good evening. I'm not in a hurry.
Okay.
I
Just
said to
waiting
them
for something.
earlier, I said, you guys are cheap. There's stuff reports to.
I like that. I will be brief. On Thursday last week, I was notified from the county that due to staffing shortages, they will be cutting back on ambulance services. So there will be certain days of the week where there's only one ambulance countywide, which means there will be no ambulance in Brush. We respond to life-threatening emergencies only as far as medicals go. We're not changing that. We don't have the staffing to go on minor medical calls, where I think there will be a lot of pushback because of this. Second thing I have, on May 23rd, we are swearing in 2 new officers, so I'm excited for that.
Yay.
And that will be during the council meeting, so
Okay.
hopefully you'll all be here, but you're all invited anyway. And then the third thing I have, last council meeting, I gave you a letter regarding feral cats. I just wanted to follow up on that. Are there any questions or concerns I can answer on that?
Somebody fill me in, I didn't see that one. Sorry, just gloss over it. What was the cat thing?
I can send you a copy.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Pretty long.
It was cats. It's like chickens all over again.
It is worse than chickens and water.
That's worse than chickens.
Hey,
You can already have chicken.
that's all I've got.
I got a question,
Yes,
Chief, real quick. So I know this is the same thing with the police where we're picking certain nights where there's nobody on duty. What happens if that night falls on a night where there's no ambulance in Brush?
We have stopped doing that.
Okay.
So we are 24/7.
Wow. Nice.
So we're stretched thin, but we're covering everything now, so.
I seen I heard in Morgan, they're doing on the radio for the police down there, that ads on the radio that, we'll send you to the police academy and whatnot. Would that help us here, you think?
I don't know about the radio. We have some budgetary challenges with the academy, not on our end, but trying to negotiate a price with the academy right now. So I'm not able to lock that in, and we actually don't have many, if any, viable applicants for that. With new state laws, I have to have my fall applicants finished and signed up and ready to go by May 16th. So we're kind of running out of time to hire for that.
Gotcha.
We have advertised all over in newspapers and Facebook, and we're sending out carrier pigeons and everything else we can make up.
Smoke signals.
I have a question for
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
How is the SRO program going, and with the end of the school year, will he return back to normal duty?
So it's going great.
Okay.
We've actually seen a lot of benefit from that, not just in the schools, but our after hours or after school hours calls with juveniles has dramatically decreased. And I see that as a direct benefit of the SRO program. Once school is over, yes, he will be part of the regular rotation and actually be helping train some of the new officers.
Along that line, question I had at the meeting for the 4-day week, how does that affect the SRO program? Is any talks about that being renegotiated or changed?
Well, they're extending the school day.
So there's still the same amount of time?
It's still the same amount of time, so that really doesn't change, other than the SRO works 4 days a week instead of 5. However, sporting events are still on Fridays.
Okay.
So I don't see a lot of change there other than they'll get a chance to sleep Friday morning and work Friday nights.
So that was my concern. I actually feel there's gonna be more time with the SROs there.
You can flex time if you need.
Yeah, I don't see that as an issue. Right now, we're able to balance things out. If there are evening activities, the SRO isn't in the school 8 hours a day. He
Okay.
can
adapt his schedule as needed. That's really been a non-issue. He actually is incurring the least amount of overtime of all my officers right now.
On that note of the 4-day week, and I'm sure that it's something that you've probably collaborated on already with different individuals, but is the community, I guess the stakeholders, are we getting prepared for what fallout might come from a 4-day week?
I guess I'm the lowest man on the totem pole in that discussion. I think there's a lot of other entities. Lance can answer some of that better than I can. But as far as we're going, we can't change anything anyway because we don't have the staffing to gear up for that.
I'm just concerned, and I'm hopeful we can be proactive in making sure our youth stay out of trouble.
I hope so too. I think a lot of that burden goes back on the schools though, because with that gap there, and there's a big gap in childcare on Fridays, they kind of have the onus to fill that to a certain degree. So
Of course.
beyond that, I can't speak to that.
I'm hopeful that with the SRO program being so in place though, that maybe, they'll be more comfortable and be more inclined. Like if there's something that happens on a Friday, they can talk about it on a Monday.
Absolutely.
One could hope anyway. Fingers crossed. Thanks, Chief.
I had one thing. I had a young man that went on a ride-along with Officer Barham,
Yes.
and he was nothing but complimentary. He said Officer Barham was awesome. He said you were amazing. He said everybody was awesome, and he's so excited to be old enough to be able to go to the police academy. So I don't know if
He's got to wait a couple more years.
I know,
but I
yeah.
appreciate it.
I was gonna say, did he put in an application?
Yeah, he's not old enough yet, but you guys made a really good impression, and
Well, thank you.
and I don't know
Appreciate
if you guys do that. I mean, you know you make a good impression all the time, but if you do the ride-alongs very often, but it was kind of a really cool experience for him.
Yeah, and we do. The ride-alongs are open. We set a limit on how often you can do them. Otherwise, there are certain people who would be here every week, but.
Well, he decided to do it after working all day, doing an overnight, so he could get up and go to work the next day. That didn't work out very well, but he was pretty excited about it anyway.
Yeah, I would encourage any of you to do that as well. It's a good eye-opening experience.
Yeah, so thank you for
Thank you.
making a great impression.
Chief, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Are you finding that some of the people that are applying or not applying are doing so because of the loss of qualified immunity?
Absolutely.
Is there anything that can be done on the city level to mitigate that fear?
So I think we have done as much as we can. CIRSA, our insurance company, offers a certain carrier, so that covers that. If an officer is sued and they are deemed to pay that out-of-pocket expense, CIRSA will cover it. Not everybody's doing that. I don't know if that even changed our rates or not, but we do that. Beyond that, I don't know anything specific that we can do to kind of help mitigate that.
I know for a fact that's a big fear for a lot of people in law enforcement right now. I guess this might be more for Dan. Is there anything the city can do on top of that to make officers less afraid to get into law enforcement or stay in law enforcement? Like, I don't know what power the city has to do towards that.
The state, before Dan answers, the state actually passed a bill that prohibits cities from getting involved in that, so.
I do remember that.
There are some limitations as to what.
Is there anything that can be done that you're aware of? Besides
Outside
this
of
sort
political action, no.
Gotcha.
I don't know if you know.
I can sure send out an attorney listserv to see if, all the municipal attorneys, if anyone has an idea, but yeah, I know that was Greenwood Village, right?
Yep.
I think short of lobbying for some change, I don't think change is gonna happen unless we're pounding on doors down in Denver or something.
I think just the one thing to carry off on that, and this is far more political than I want to get, but our governor did recently announce that he wants Colorado to be one of the 10 safest states in the country. And I think repealing 217 would be the first step in that direction. Without that action, I don't think we'll get there.
Despite that, congratulations on being ranked the #1 safest city in the state of Colorado.
Yes.
Thank you. I don't believe it to be true, but
I believe it to be true. It made the news. It was great.
well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tad Anderson, Fire Chief.
Fresh from a fire, it looks like.
Yep,
Okay.
we're pretty busy right now. So, yeah, a couple of things. I've got 4 firefighters at FDIC in Indianapolis training. I've got 1 in New Mexico fighting wildfires. And so we're a little short-handed around here, but everybody's stepping up. They're doing a great job. We've had some challenging incidents lately, and they've come out very well. So we I was talking to Monty earlier about our training center. We have a few things left to do, and that is planned to be here sometime in June, is the last we heard. So we've had the electricians in the kitchen getting some wiring done, so we hope to get the kitchen all done soon. That's been a long haul. I had the honor of testifying in front of the State House on a bill, SB2. It's a bill for volunteer firefighters and seasonal firefighters, $5 million a year for the next 10 years, so $50 million. They passed it that day with a 12-0 vote. So it goes to the next couple of steps, and we're hoping to see it on the governor's desk, hopefully the first of the month. So that's been quite a experience. So that's about it. Our 4 rookies are doing great, and they're getting lots of experience, so.
Do you have a final acreage on that fire from last week?
I don't yet. Actually, we talked with PD, and they went out and ran some drone video for us, and we should be able to tell that from that.
Except it grew tonight, so.
It did. So the fire that we had tonight came right off of that fire, same people, only it caught part of PD's gun range on fire, actually.
Good Lord.
So I hope they're done burning.
I don't know if all of you are aware, but we had a pretty large fire. I believe the entire county was involved,
Yeah, pretty much.
including air support from Scott Aviation.
We did have 3 airdrops, which helped a ton stopping the progression of the fire. And actually, we had a water drop. Then they came in and did a gel drop for us on the same line on the head of the fire. The 3rd drop we actually dropped on the back of the fire so that we could do out a burnout operation, so we could eliminate fuel so it wouldn't extend towards the water treatment plant. So it worked out really well.
I think we got fairly lucky. That was on Thursday night, correct? Which was the day before Friday, if you guys will remember, was the worst fire danger. Haven't had that since 2010.
Yeah.
So I think we got a little lucky in that one, knock on wood, but
You guys
hopefully.
worked hard. They did a great job.
Are these permitted burns? We're under burn restriction, aren't we?
It doesn't matter. Rural is not subject to those, they're exempt. So most of the farmers, if it's gonna be a red flag day, they don't burn. This instance, it got away from them immediately and got into the river bottom, and that's what made it so difficult. Was it's so overgrown in the river bottom that you can't fight normal. So so it was a challenge, but we're able to meet it, so. it was
How's
good.
the new truck?
It's great. It's awesome.
Did you deploy it on that one?
No.
No?
Mm-mm. Nope. We had the brush trucks and the tenders out there, but most of it was done by hand because there's just no way to get in there. Now, a few years ago, we put, we call them progressive hose lay packs. They're actually backpacks, and there's 200 feet of hose in each backpack, and you can deploy it while you're fighting fire. So we'll take a hose line off an engine, start fighting fire. While we're fighting it, we'll deploy a hose line. The next guy in has a pack on. He'll pick up the hose, charge that line, start fighting fire, and deploy the next line. We laid out about 11 of those. So, they worked great. So,
And are they reusable?
yeah.
Okay.
Yep. In fact, while we were on the fire, one of the farmers came up and said, "Do you guys know you still have hose on the ground?" I said, "Yep, we left it all in place because we had those wind events coming up, and we didn't know if we'd get a rekindle, and it's such a dirty burn, it could have rekindled real easy anywhere in there, and we didn't want to have to lay the hose back out. So it's still laying on the ground." So,
I'll stop grilling you, I don't have any more questions.
it's all good.
Chief, we talked real quick, I know it's getting late, about the truck and trailer.
Yeah.
About, and maybe Mr. Inslee can get on this too. So much going on, we kinda got put on the back burner, but can you kinda tell them what you told me about how you would use that truck and the trailer?
Sure. I think it was a failure on my part during budget time, but this pickup and trailer that we're talking about has multiple uses. In fact, some of our guys drove to Indianapolis to the FDIC. That's one of the uses that pickup would be used for, but we're getting more and more requests for assistance in these larger fires. It's been getting more advanced the last couple of years. And so when we're sending guys out, they're taking fire engines, but they're only going out for 72 hours. If we're able to supplement that, a lot of times we get requests to maintain that engine. So another 72 hours means we gotta send another crew out with their gear and everything else. Another use of that particular pickup. The trailer, we do the fireworks, we do a lot of stuff for the community, and we use our own pickups and our own trailers, always have. So this would allow us to utilize something from the department, but we also have hazmat equipment that we don't carry on trucks. So we, if we, or when we get those large events, then we have to load it all up and take it out to a scene. We could do that in that unit as opposed to our personal units. The fireworks is a big thing, trying to keep them safe. We have a container that stores the fireworks until we're ready to go. But moving them from the firehouse to any place where we're gonna deploy them is sketchy. So, you know, a good-sized trailer with all the equipment and the fireworks in it's critical. Lots of uses, you know, it's a utility vehicle, it's a utility trailer. There was some talk about the city has pickups and trailers. And that's true, and we can request those at any time as long as we have enough time to get that organized. But when it's an emergency or it's a weekend when we're deploying guys or doing things like that, then that doesn't happen. We don't have the time to get a hold of somebody and then round up a pickup and round up a trailer and things like that. So, that's the reason behind the pickup and the trailer.
Maybe we can go through rule board, see if we can figure something out, you know, if we can, well, Mr. Inslee's here, so maybe we can get together and see if we can get that figured out, you know.
We can set up a meeting with their board and the city council because we're well past due for that. And there might be a few other issues out there too that we wanna discuss and kinda see where they're sitting to. I know they're doing some negotiations with Excel. I don't know where that ended up, but that's been one of the challenges. They've got shortfalls on revenues, but we've been wanting to partner with them 50-50 wherever we can. And, but we can definitely call up a meeting.
Something that I'm kinda curious on, I got a friend that's a firefighter after talking about this whole weekend. And, you know, it's mostly volunteer departments, something, if you could put something together to show the council about the only benefit I think firefighters get is retirement. Volunteer firefighters anyway, like, that's what they get out of it, and I don't think they expect anything. But could you possibly in the future put something together to show what that retirement number is when they retire? What we contribute to that, what and how we contribute to that fund? I don't know if it's like a national fund or whatever. And if it's possible to look into maybe contributing more to that fund to try to bring more firefighters, volunteer firefighters into the fold a little, maybe just sweeten the pot. I mean, we're having to do a lot for first responders just to get people to show up anymore, so I think we need to start looking at what we can do.
We can, at that same meeting, have Joanne runs most of the FBPA for the firefighters, and so she can explain exactly how it all works and
Just
how they come up with the numbers.
ballpark, when you retire, or brush volunteer firefighter retires, what do they get a month?
I think they get $250.
That's at 260, but if you're a,
I
if
knew you
you're a-
were gonna roll your eyes at that.
but if you're a fire chief, then you get an additional stipend.
I
is
don't
that what
think
it
so.
is? It's not, every chief got additional.
Weren't we doing a small stipend to those that responded to fires? Did that ever deploy, or did
The
it just come
conversation
to an
was
end?
an on-call pay when calls happened. It did not succeed. An on-call pay, I mean, I would so love to be a part of that conversation, because it really needs to happen, but that is one thing I definitely would not be allowed to participate in, but.
I think, that's something we do have to visit. If we're gonna continue to struggle with volunteers, and we've had quite a few people that come in and they're really excited until they realize how much work it is, because it's a lot of work. It's a full, at minimum, it's a full-time job on top of your full-time job.
Just to put it in perspective, we make $300 a month and do far less for far shorter periods of time than they do.
I agree.
And
You
they
guys
get
all worked
260.
a full day, most of you had a full-time job on Thursday, and then you spent, what, 6-7 hours on that fire on top of that?
Well, I got my first fire that day at 3 o'clock that morning. And we had a fire in another group of trees. We fought it, went to work. Right as we were coming off work, that's when that call came in. So that was a 22-hour day.
And then you got called back out to it the next night.
Correct.
And then you got called back out to it again tonight.
Correct.
So.
It's just, it happens.
I'd just like to look into it. I know nothing about it, so I just thought it might be a good opportunity for council to look at maybe something we could do to, I don't have any clue how it works, so.
Yeah, we've had a lot of discussions about it. We can get something together during that meeting with the rule board.
Yeah, it seems like something the rural fire board would be contributing to as well, since these are the farmers that aren't exempt from burning on.
I can't imagine.
And the
it's-
road board contributes.
Yeah.
I can't imagine we contribute a whole heck of a lot to that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the contribution is annually that the city contributes, but.
If there's anything else, chief, you think about, let us know before.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You.
Thanks, Chief. Dan, I can be a part of those conversations, right? It's just when it comes down to decision-making that I can't be a part of it.
You don't want to, because you have at least the appearance of a impropriety, you don't want to sway a council member one way or the other.
Right.
Where it could affect you, so.
So
You'd have to recuse yourself altogether.
altogether, yeah, just so you guys are aware, my husband's actually one of the ones that's at the conference, so like, I absolutely should not participate.
Lance
Still awake.
Schwint. Director of Community Services.
All right. To answer Chief's question, we have been meeting with the school board, or not school board, but with Dr. Wilson the last couple months about different activities on that off day, what we can provide and everything. And it's kind of like what Chief said. We don't feel like the burden is totally on us. However, with that open day, we will be providing some sort of activity and everything just to enhance our programs and everything. And I feel like the library feels the same way as far as that goes. Some of the discussions that we have had I think the school district soon will be sending out a survey to all the parents and to whoever, to the townspeople, with concerns that the recreation department and also the library has on what they would be interested in or not interested in, whether they would be willing to pay for certain services or things like that. But we're putting that, we're helping put that survey together. And we will continue to meet with them probably monthly until a decision's made on what exactly they're gonna do. But, no burden is put on the city. However, we feel as though they're kind of asking us to contribute something, when it comes to programming and stuff for kids that have to stay at home.
So given that I sit on the library board as a liaison for the city council, I knew that there was talks in the works in collaboration with you guys. While I understand the school district's reasoning for wanting to go to a 4-day week, it does put some burden on the rec department, the library, and the other districts that are having to support that extra day. So does it create a financial burden, or can we see that yet?
Well, that's one of the questions that's gonna be asked to the community is, because anything that we provide will have to be, will cost to cover our expenses and everything, whether, for personnel or if we have to purchase anything. The school has said that they would, we could use their transportation if that would be part of it. We could use, their facilities and all that, but our programming would have to be paid for somehow. And so these kids that don't have anything, they still would be required to pay. There'd be very few programs that we could put forth for free, as far as through the rec department, so.
It's also important to remember that when this was being discussed by the school district, that one of the comments made was there's 50 to 60 school staff members that said that they would be willing to work on those Fridays or do something to have opportunities for the kids. And so if you have 50 potential employees that can help, that's a lot more help than what, 2 people?
Right.
Only 2 people can do. So I think it's important to, let's see what the school district can provide, and then we maybe fill in the gaps.
Yeah, and for sure there's gonna be additional Fridays, especially when the weather's good, that we can provide different things within our parks and all that sort of thing. It's gonna take a lot of collaboration and kind of just to figure out what the community expects, because we're not gonna have a babysitting service by any means. We're gonna have focused programming that will benefit certain age groups and whatever we can oversee and stuff. So those conversations are still in the works, and I'll report back to you as we have more and more information from those. I'd like to go back on, because I was also, being the football coach, Officer, who's it? Huh? Barham. I tell you what, he does an excellent job. I've got to deal with him as a football coach and see him in the schools, interact with the kids and everything, and he's, every coach that I've talked to, he's been a big benefit for the system. So we're very lucky to have him, and he does a great job within the school system. So I just wanted to kind of give you kudos there. Starting more with the school, on May 3rd of next week, I have representatives from Great Outdoors Colorado. They're gonna come down and they're gonna view the middle school property. Since we're trying to collaborate on a grant for that, they wanna see, what it is, a little bit more about it, talk a little bit more about how it could get funded and all that sort of thing. So anyway, I am meeting with GOCO representatives on that, and hopefully push that process forward a little bit. As you know, GOCO grants, the cities have to apply for them, although we're doing it on behalf of the school district, because it's actually a school district property and all that, but the city itself would have to apply for those as their partner and everything. So that's going on. This Wednesday at 6:30 over at the golf course, we will have our community trip meeting to Branson. We talked about, a little bit about that last council meeting, but it is this Wednesday, the 27th. This past week, I don't know if Damon, you want to talk a little bit about Arbor Day on the reports, but we had Arbor Day there for the third graders, and thought it was a really good program, and third grade teachers and kids did a really good job. And kudos to Bruce Bosley for all he did with it. And on Saturday, it was going to be a great day for opening day for the little kids baseball, but right when we got all the kids out there, the wind came up, and it was pretty chilly for a lot of people. But we had about, I don't know, 250 people out there, and we got memorial donation from Cameron Alexander's family, which he passed away in a car crash. And he donated over $7,500 for equipment for the brush rec department. And then also we honored Zach Smith, who's a longtime coach for us for the last several years, and he had passed away this past year. So we did a little ceremony for both those two. And finally, this Friday, the city and the school district, and I think the chamber and police department too, you guys have a couple tasks to do. All the school kids are coming out and doing their Give Back Day. So we have several jobs within our parks and the cemetery and the golf course. I think downtown, I think we're also taking a group of them to clean the roadway that goes from Hospital Road all the way out to Love's. And we're gonna try to get some people along the interstate too by the golf course to just pick up trash and clean up the neighborhood. And I believe there's some elderly's lawns that are gonna be redone and all that sort of thing. So this will be hopefully good weather. It seems like it's always poor weather whenever we try to do it, but a lot of projects that'll be going on this Friday. So that's all I have.
Makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff Ulrich, Director of Public Works.
Not much, or not near as enough, the same as what these other two have had, but just bring out that we are in the middle of our spring cleanup, so just keep in mind that our crews are out there trying to pick up what we can, try to get it done. With that also, we are also flushing our water mains. We did it this morning, about 2 in the morning until 6, try to get the septic build up in the lines throughout the winter time, get those out before people start really turning on their sprinklers and such and creating that big flush and creating the brown water. So they'll be out again, I would say tomorrow morning at 2 in the morning, but tonight, they'll be out again tonight and flushing, and potentially even a third night, depending on how fast they can move through the system and how dirty it is. And then finally, if you haven't noticed, but we do have glass recycling back. That's going to go a long way to reducing the contamination that we have currently in our single stream, because people can't read a sign. So, that's just about it.
Dale, can you do, at the next meeting, either you or Dawn, just an update on the water, that we used to give out a report where it would show the depths of the well field. Because we're in such a dry cycle right now, before we get to water conservation, things like that, just see where we stand today compared to the last 10, 20 years.
Sure.
I think it's been 2004 or 2005, the last time that we had water conservation measures put in place.
Correct.
Limiting how much we could water lawns, but it doesn't seem like it's getting any more wetter outside, I guess, or more moisture, so.
Right. Okay. Any questions, comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dale. Miranda Packard, City Clerk.
To go along with Hospital Week, I just wanted to pass along that the city council and department heads are invited to the barbecue on Wednesday, May 11th at 12:30 at East Morgan County Hospital. And then also, each of you have a copy of the Code of Conduct at your place. If you haven't already signed and returned that to me for the year, please do so. One thing to mention is that we lost Counselor Klinkhammer about 25 minutes ago. He texted me,
Oh.
you know that he's gone. And then we are looking to still line up the council retreat. I've got feedback from, I think, 3 of you And what we'll probably do is maybe put a date out there tomorrow and see who all can make it, so we can go ahead and get that lined up. And that's all I have.
I truly wonder what people on the cruise ship thought when he was silent with his phone and all of a sudden he'd go, yes. I'm just wondering.
Oh, I'm sure he's having fun. Thank you, Lorna. Dan Cron, City Attorney.
Not a whole lot to report. I've been working with Monty on a couple follow-up items, trying to wrap up some Rick Carusian stuff. We also, Crowd Law Office is gonna be at CML, and this is super last minute, but we're gonna have appetizers and cocktails and whatever one night, so I'll send out an email to Loranda.
Say less.
We're there.
But you guys are all welcome to come.
Thank you. Monty Torres.
Okay, a few items. One from Joanne, the ARPA program, these funds that we're getting. We had to submit in our first semi-annual report. And so what we explained in the report was that, we received the funds or part of the funds, but we haven't used those yet. And we just had to give them an idea of how those funds were going to be used. And so the next time, in the next 6 months, we'll have more to report to them as projects start playing out a little bit more. Westwood subdivision, that's still moving along. I've got one due back to them tomorrow. North Point, that's the apartments off Mill Street. That's moving forward right now. They're waiting to ensure that they're gonna get some CHAFA funding, I believe it is. And then we have a variance process that they've gotta go through for parking. And then we have a potential annexation that we're working on. And we've been having the meetings, they're sounding promising, but it does cost quite a bit to annex in when you have to do the water, put in the streets, curb and gutter, stormwater. It starts adding up pretty quickly, so we just have the first draft of the engineering plans last week, so we're gonna keep moving forward on that project. Still having not one but two RV park or campground discussions, and then potentially a storage unit business is looking at locating in Brush as well. And then in your stack of papers there is the letter just confirming that we're the highest bidder for a couple water shares. And that's it.
Thank you. Mayor and council reports. Do any councilors have anything to report? I did do I went to the Arbor Day at the Watrous Park, and the kids all had these fun little programs they did. It was really kind of cool. It was hot because there's no trees out there. But Councilor Klinkhammer joined me, and then from there I went over to Ebenezer and joined them on theirs, and they threw a speech at me, but it was nice and cool there because they have lots of big trees. So it was nice to just be able to be around people. Councilor Klinkhammer wanted me to mention the Cinco de Mayo festivities at the library on
Cinco de Mayo.
Can't remember the time though. I think I saw it was like 4 to 6 maybe.
4 to 7.
4 to 7. So he's pretty excited about that and would love for everybody to join them. And I think that's all I have.
I think I have one thing I would like to talk about and bring to council's attention, and something that I'm looking more into. And the only reason I'm bringing it up is because there was mention of it tonight of, well, if I have to pay for this, I'm gonna increase the fees on my renters. There are many states in the union that have laws preventing rents being raised due to economic condition that are unreasonable. We are not one of them that I have found. I don't know if that has to be a state thing. I don't know if it could be a city thing. But I'm the parent of a 20-year-old that can't move out because a one-bedroom apartment costs $1,000 a month. So I think that it's something that we maybe should look into in helping to protect our citizens that are trying to rent and trying to be independent from being gouged unnecessarily by, maybe not necessarily the type of, well, if I have to pay for this, I understand that, but there's some that are doing it just because they can. And I think that that's wrong. So That's something that I would like to look into, and once I find out more information, I'll probably bring it back to council and see what we can come up with. And then I'll end on a positive note, because that's kind of serious. So I just want to say thank you guys so much for all of your support of our firefighters. As a fire wife, it's really important to me, so I appreciate it.
Chief slapped me around before the meeting, that's why I brought it up.
Anybody else? And I would call this meeting adjourned.